Don Melvin Go was a legend, the hero of the Great Demon War, who single-handedly wiped out the entire demon horde and sent them crawling back to hell, earning him a statue that everyone admires to this day. Why, even the Empire's top academy is named after him. But his grandson Elric isn't quite the powerhouse everyone expected. While his intellect and knowledge are off the charts, especially his unique ability to see mana, it's a gift every mage dreams of. But what does it matter when he can't condense mana himself? While all his friends have already graduated, Elric is still stuck in the beginner class because he suffers from a condition called mana stagnation, which prevents mana from circulating through his body. He's tried treatment after treatment, but the results are always zero. He can't create a magic circle to save his life, not even the smallest one. Many of his professors have urged him to give up on magic and use his brains to become a scholar instead. But Elric refuses to do that. He keeps chasing after magic, and the result is always top marks in theory, but an F in practice. He's failed 4 times in 4 years, and now he's facing his 5th failure, which means expulsion from the academy. This is a total slap in the face to both him and the Melvin Go family. After all, the great Archmage's own grandson is getting kicked out of the very academy that bears his name. As he sits there reading, looking for information on his condition, suddenly someone slams his face right into the desk. He looks up furious, ready to shout, "Who the hell is that?" But the moment he sees Son Nemeto, he shuts his mouth. See, earlier when he was being teased by some first years, he had used Son's name to scare them off. Now back in reality, Elric's attitude does a complete 180. "Oh hey, is it really you, my amazing and awesome brother Son Nemeto?" Son grumbles, "You jerk. Didn't I tell you not to use my name to threaten the first years?" He looks annoyed, sure. But he's a good guy, at least to Elric. After the Melvin Go family fell, the Magic Tower was led by the 6 noble houses, and Son is a member of one of them. He's a true son of the Nemeto house. The moment he graduated, Son became a teacher, an elite member of the academy. Even though his path is the exact opposite of Elric's, Son is still the only one who stands by him. Back to today. Son isn't here to hang out. He pulls out a file and pushes it toward Elric. Elric asks, "What's this? Diamond Dragon?" "A discovery plan." "Why are you giving this to me?" Son explains that although this is an ancient species of dragon, it's still being studied, even now. And recently we suddenly found their nest. I want you to join the expedition team. As soon as he hears ancient dragon, Elric grabs the file, unable to hide his shock. Aren't they supposed to be extinct? They found a dragon cave, the supposed source of magic. Seeing Elric's reaction, Son tempts him. "If you manage to find an artifact, do you think the Academy would overlook your expulsion?" A flurry of beautiful scenarios fills Elric's head. That would be awesome. It's not just about avoiding expulsion. Who knows, maybe the Dragon Cave could even solve my mana stagnation. Forget it. Even if something like that existed, the headmaster would just take it. Suddenly, Elric realizes something. He slams his hand on the table and starts laughing like a madman. Son sitting across from him looks confused. What the hell? What is wrong with this lunatic? Just then, Elric quietly points to a red-circled spot on the map. "Son, there is no nest here." Son glances behind him, then sighs in relief. Thank God no one heard that. Son warns him, "Watch your mouth. Do you have any idea how many professors are involved in this? You're challenging the big shots all at once." Elric answers calmly. "So what?" Son frowns and immediately uses a teleportation simulation spell to bring them both to the map's location. Son points down. "Look, that crack was formed by shifting tectonic plates and a massive amount of mana is leaking out from it." Seeing that mountain of mana, Elric can't help but gasp. This much must have taken at least 100,000 years to accumulate. No wonder you guys thought the Dragon Cave was here. He wants to remind Elric of the 3 principles. What is the flow of mana? First from high to low, second from wide to narrow, and finally from hot to cold. With those principles, anyone would be certain the Dragon Cave is right there. His finger points directly at the crack, but because the scorching lava flows through it, mana can't concentrate there. Therefore, a dragon couldn't live there. Son's face goes pale, his voice stuttering. "No, that's impossible. The Akron volcano is unique, isn't it? Its lava flows beneath the continental shelf." Son still doesn't want to believe it. "But we recorded the mana wavelength of a dragon in this area. How can the Dragon Cave not be there?" Elric rests his chin on his hand. "I didn't say there was no cave." He smirks and continues pointing to a different spot on the map. "There's definitely a cave right here, inside the Karagun Cavern. 100% of the dragon treasure is there." Scene change. Sun is standing in front of the headmaster's door, scratching his head and fidgeting, unsure of how to report this. He keeps reaching for the door but can't stop his mind from racing. Maybe I should just play dumb. If I piss the headmaster off, I'll get kicked out for sure. But what if what Elric said is actually true? Sun himself had seen how hard his buddy practiced day and night, only to get absolutely zero results. A faint smile touches Sun's lips. If this is real, that crazy bastard. He can actually cure magic blockage. Sun pats his face to snap back to reality. If that's the case, as his friend, I've got to help him. Sun reports this to Headmaster Dean Barrick, who doesn't look pleased at all. Are you saying my research report is wrong? Sun tries to explain it's not like that. But I wanted to ask your opinion because maybe, before he can finish, he's cut off. Sun, I don't know why you'd even come to such a conclusion. If you can't convince me, even if you are from the Nemeto family, I won't let this slide. The air in the room suddenly becomes suffocating. An overwhelming amount of mana completely suppresses Sun. So this is the power of a 7th circle mage. Just as the tension peaks, it's shattered, the door is kicked wide open by Elric. Sun spins around in shock, shouting at his friend. Elric, are you insane? Why are you here? Elric ignores him and bows directly to the headmaster. Greetings, headmaster. Forgive my sudden intrusion. The headmaster's gaze is cold. Elric Melvingo, is that right? So this is the deduction the assistant professor came up with based on your opinion, Elric. He sneers. I see. I suppose I should compliment your insight and clarity. Hard to believe a student could come up with something like this. But without any proof, it's just a guess, isn't it? Elric replies bluntly. This is basic knowledge even a 3-year-old would know. Do you really need proof for that, old man? Barrick's face turns pitch black. Elric's gaze doesn't show a hint of fear as he stares straight into the man's eyes. Outside Sun is trembling, thinking to himself, is this guy nuts? Why the hell are you provoking him? You absolute maniac. You didn't come here to help me. You came here to get us both killed. Dean Barrick clutches his face, laughing in pure rage. Basic knowledge, you say? I'm so speechless I can only laugh. A pathetic weakling who can't even hold mana has the nerve to say this. Elric asks right back, are you saying my hypothesis is wrong? The old man regains his composure. Well, some people just get lucky, but garbage that keeps flapping its mouth without knowing its place, like you, for instance. He looks at the professor. I simply can't ignore a student's input. He looks at Elric with a sinister glint in his eyes. Ah, right. Why don't we make a wager? Dean Barrick lays out the terms. I'll provide everything you need to set up an expedition team. But if you fail, the Melvingo family heirloom will be mine. That was the necklace the Grand Archmage Euron Melvingo had left behind. Sun shouts, are you not frustrated by this? Even though Sun is shaking with anger, Elric is just calmly reading a book. You're gonna blow my eardrums out. Keep it down. It's fine. They said they wouldn't bother me anymore if I found the dragon's lair, didn't they? Sun yanks the book out of Elric's hands, his face twisted in annoyance. What if you don't find it? If your prediction is wrong, the family heirloom will be taken. You idiot. That necklace, it's only meant for the head of the Melvingo family. Elric acts like it's no big deal. That guy has always wanted to get his hands on this necklace anyway. Sun keeps rambling. How can you still be smiling? Don't you get the situation? Elric just flashes a bright smile. Thanks, though. At least you're always by my side. Sun buries his face in his hands, defeated. You don't realize that my life is going to be ruined, too. If we don't find the right lair, right, so what's the plan? Elric turns serious. My friend, do you really think this Elric Melvingo would accept a bet just because he was threatened? Sun is confused. What do you mean? Elric suddenly turns manic. If he dares to covet the Melvingo family heirloom, he's going to have to bet his own life at the very least for it to be a fair trade. Sun's eyes fill with fear. He almost forgot this guy has 2 reputations. One is the disgrace of the Melvingo family. The other, his second personality, is the most terrifying monster in the Melvingo lineage. Sun sits down across from him, starting to feel a bit more at ease. Elric's expression reminds him of when they were all still students. A story Sun really didn't want to bring up. 7 years ago, Elric was only 15. Back then, because he couldn't use mana, he was mocked by his peers. The ringleader was 7. Are you even sure you're actually a Melvingo? You can't even pull off basic magic. Did the clan head pick you up from some gutter somewhere? Faced with the mockery and laughter, Elric just stayed silent as they turned and walked away. Elric quietly stood up from behind and without a second thought grabbed a rock and smashed it straight into Raven's head, leaving everyone at the Uden Academy Disciplinary Conference in absolute shock. Elric was put on trial, but according to the Empire's laws, those who mock a duke's family must face punishment. That was the price Raven had to pay, leaving him unable to say another word. Elric was only suspended for fighting, and in the days that followed, no one dared to touch him anymore. The way his friend covered his face showed his helplessness at Elric's recklessness. Just as he was starting to calm down, he looked down. Sun shouted loudly, "Are you out of your mind?" His arm holding the book wouldn't stop shaking. "This is a forbidden text. Did you run out of things to read?" Elric scratched his head sheepishly, replying, "Exactly. If I get caught with this, I'm literally going to be served up on a skewer." Sun was speechless and could only return the book to Elric. "You really are insane. What do you intend to do with the Beast King's body reinforcement technique?" Elric hesitated for a moment. "I'm just wondering if this might help me cure my magic blockage. When the Beast King invaded the Empire with his Beastman army, we had a lot of trouble dealing with this very technique. It helped him amplify his physical capabilities to the extreme by the time the battle ended. The technique disappeared after the Empire drove all the Beastmen out and built a wall to keep them away." Sun was skeptical. Even the scholars failed to recreate this technique. Just then, Elric flipped through the book and replied nonchalantly, "I've already recreated it, but I'm not sure how it's going to mutate my body." Sun jumped, asking in disbelief, You actually recreated it?" Before he could answer, a violent tremor shook everything. Both Elric and Sun got out of the carriage to see why it had stopped so abruptly. A voice and the sound of footsteps approached. "Greetings, Elric. Long time no see." Elric replied with an icy expression. "I didn't think I'd be running into you guys. Why are you here?" It turned out the person who arrived was Raven. He had now become a senior researcher at the Vero Institute. Seeing Elric, the three of them looked a bit nervous. "Why am I here, you ask?" "Because I just love my classmates so much." Sun was about to settle the score with them when Raven gestured behind him. "The headmaster ordered us to provide support." Elric's gaze pierced right through the group of support personnel. There were quite a few people there hiding their mana. "How very kind of you." "I remember saying I didn't need any support," Sun whispered beside him. "You can feel it, right?" "How many are hiding their mana?" Elric's expression turned serious. "This is typical of the headmaster's style." He reassured him, "Don't worry, I've already prepared for this." Elizabeth was already holding something in her hand. Sun's eyes went wide with shock. "What? How did you get your hands on that?" Elric just offered a wicked smile. From inside the headmaster's office, loud shouting could be heard. "What? He's already taken the breath of Gaina and the Heaven's Blue King's armor." Seeing that angry reaction, Raven nervously explained, "Since you ordered us to provide him with maximum support, I just—" Before he could finish, the old headmaster exploded. "You idiot! Do you think it's okay to lend a student a grade 4 magic artifact that could turn a whole town into dust?" And to him, of all people, the old man clutched his head in frustration. "Get out! I don't want to see your face anymore." As soon as the words left his mouth, the guy bolted. Dean Barrick felt anxious. If the other candidates found out about this, it would be a huge mess. A thought suddenly crossed his mind. Wait, if that kid actually finds the dragon's lair, this isn't bad at all. I guess that bloodline isn't just a rumor. Dean Barrick slammed his hand down on the table. I should just replace this whole idiotic research team. They dare call themselves scholars when they don't even know the basics. He licked his lips greedily, and thanks to those fools, I'll have the chance to seize that pendant. I must have it. I will definitely become the next leader. Dean Barrick's rage burned his hand, crumpling the paper. Even if you win the bet, it only matters if you can make it back alive. Following Elric's instructions, Sun used his mana tracking magic. It activated right behind them. A pillar of light erupted from the ground. This meant Elric was right. The dragon's lair was actually here. He had no time to celebrate. Elric urged the team, "We have to move fast before the light fades." Sun quickly grabbed Elric and flew straight ahead. They left their old classmates standing there, stunned and confused. "Wait, what about us?" The scene cut to the end. Raven's group finally arrived, panting heavily. "Please, wait for us. You two are exhausting. But wait, there's nothing here, not even a small cave." Zevin chuckled to himself, thinking, everything's going smoothly now. Time to step up and see what's really inside your skull, isn't it? Someone has to pay for this mistake, don't you think? Suddenly Elizabeth shouted, "Sun, look! Can you blast a massive hole right here?" Sun nodded, channeling a surge of magical energy through his body. A pillar of flames erupted, shooting straight into the ground and triggering a colossal explosion. The ground was blown wide open, leaving a gaping crater. The other students looked on in disbelief, whispering, "How is that even possible? What if it's the worst-case scenario, a dragon?" They barely had time to process it. A wave of raw power surged from the pit, sending the group scrambling to cover their faces in fear. Elric calmed them down. "Stay back, don't move. It's just compressed mana escaping from when I created the hole. Everyone, let's head inside now." Unfazed. Elric led the way, ignoring the students calling out from behind. As they descended deeper into the cave, the air grew freezing even with their protective spells active. Yet the cold still seeped right through. Elric's gaze locked onto the darkness ahead. Sun asked, "What's wrong? Do you see something?" Elric frowned. "It's not that. I just felt a chill run straight down my spine." Despite the unease, they pressed on. Little did Elric know something terrifying had already sensed his arrival. It was waiting for him just behind that door. Soon they discovered a massive gate, ancient dragon runes glowing clearly across its surface. The group started cheering, preparing to use their powers to break the door down. Elric suddenly blocked them. "Don't you guys see the dragon seal on this door? We have no idea what will happen if we mess with it." Zevin looked annoyed, but held back. "Fine, whatever. You're always so cautious, I get it." While the rest argued over how to break the seal, Zevin poked around and found something. He was curious. Is that sphere on the door made of gold? Elizabeth screamed, trying to stop him, but it was too late. Zevin accidentally touched it, triggering the trap. Ancient glowing text flared up across the door. Beneath their feet, magic circles erupted, firing endless volleys of fireballs. Their protective barriers couldn't hold up for long. Sun asked urgently, "Elric, what do we do now?" Elric whipped out his notebook. "I'll try to decode these inscriptions." Amidst the panicked screams of the group, he forced himself to stay calm and focus. Elric reassured himself. "It's just a situational test. Yeah, just imagine this is a test. I'll definitely find the solution. I believe in myself just like always." Outside the barrier, the group was falling into despair, and Sun's face turned grim. Elric scribbled ancient runes onto his paper, pressed his hand against a sphere on the door, and squeezed his eyes shut, whispering, "Please, come on, just work." After the tremors subsided, they stood in stunned silence amidst the ruins. It stopped. Sun let out a ragged breath and collapsed. "I really thought I was a goner." Elric rushed over. "Sun, are you okay?" Seeing Elric, Sun smiled weakly. "Thanks to you, I'm still alive." The others began to recover. "Give it a second, these wounds will heal up fast." "That nearly took years off my life." Zevin was still sweating, but he laughed. "You bastard, you're actually pretty incredible." Elric chuckled, feeling pleased. "That's my power for you, you jerk." They hadn't been celebrating long before the air shifted. Someone noticed and looked up in shock just as something moved at a speed impossible to track. Something lunged down, piercing through the student's arm and blowing it off completely. The guy didn't even have time to scream before his body hit the ground. Two nearby students were frozen in shock. A heavy thud echoed, followed by the panic of Elric and the others. "Are you okay? What's happening?" Suddenly, countless ice spikes materialized in the air above, points aimed straight at him. He shouted, "What the hell?" and threw up a barrier instantly. But the force was crushing Sun. Other students frantically poured their energy into the shield. Elric hurriedly pulled out a scroll. "Not this again." He stared intently at the scroll, muttering the incantation as his pen moved, tracing the words in rhythm with his spell. Sun shouted from his side, "Elric, hurry up!" The pace reached its limit. Elric's eyes turned white and a faint symbol emerged within his pupils. A massive whirlwind rose and a dragon appeared, the source of the magic. He snapped back to reality. "Sun, move!" The shield above was weakening fast. Desperate, he used a speed boost skill to dash away. Magic surged around Elric's legs. Sun's situation was dire. It was too much. The ice shards had slashed his uniform to ribbons. Blood dripped down his face as they closed in. Elizabeth activated another spell, Armament. Zevin's jaw dropped in disbelief. Could it be the ice block slammed into her but left no marks? The sturdy armor on her chest protected her. "Azure King armor!" Zevin gasped. "How does she have that?" Elizabeth quickly grabbed what was in front of her. He closed his eyes tight, focusing on the chant. "This has to work." The relentless attacks hammered the area around Sun, and a massive block of ice hurtled toward his blind spot. Just then, Elric narrowed his eyes to control them. His influence caused them to vanish in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only a massive gate. "The trap is gone," Elric said, collapsing onto the floor in exhaustion. "I really thought I was a goner." His precious clothes were torn to shreds. Sun's condition was just as ragged, but he managed to lower his arms while someone nearby rushed to wipe away the sweat. Someone stared intently at the mysterious door. After the trap stopped, it opened automatically, revealing a glowing light from within. The noise grew louder as the secret was unveiled. Everything was wide open right in front of Elric. The whole exploration team helped the wounded, and let's head inside. The sight inside left him both stunned and overjoyed. Bookshelves floating high above and below them, a mountain of gold. This was the treasure trove. Another team member exclaimed, "So many magical artifacts! Look over there, that's armor made from dragon scales. Every corner of this place is sparkling with gold." "Amazing. It's all ancient books handed down through the ages," Elric whispered to himself with a smile. They were mages, after all. Suddenly, someone patted his shoulder. "You were incredible, Captain." The boy looked up wide-eyed in surprise. After saying that, the person waved and walked away casually. Right after that, Sun came over and hooked his arm around him. "You bastard, what did you just do?" Elric replied happily. Elric explained to him who got the perfect score on the theory exams. "Will you?" "I just imagined it was like a test." Then he solved it using spatial geometry and elemental theory. As he was passionately explaining, he suddenly realized something. "Wait, a test." Elizabeth Elric's mind trembled. It felt weirdly familiar, like being given practice questions before the real exam. The person next to him didn't notice. "Hey, what are you thinking about so deeply?" That question snapped him back to reality. "Oh, nothing." Sun let go and patted his shoulder lightly. "You should be smiling on a day as great as this." Then he loudly declared, "Elizabeth Melvin, go from now on. No one can ignore you or your prestigious magic family anymore." Hearing the encouragement, Elric's cheeks flushed pink. "Man, even though that still weighs on my mind." Elric happily accepted the head pat from his friend, thinking, "I'll just enjoy this moment for now. I have finally achieved freedom." In stark contrast to that positive atmosphere, a team member had climbed to the top of the treasure tower. He held a magical tool in his hand while muttering a spell. Over here, thanks to Elric's efforts, people were becoming much more comfortable interacting with him. "Captain!" The other person pulled Elric along excitedly. "There's a laboratory over here, hurry!" Elric followed along awkwardly. "Right." As Sun spoke, he kept an eye on Zevern behind them. "Our Elric has grown up. He's even being called Captain now. I should follow them." The guy looked rather urgent, reporting to Sun about dragon remains behind the treasure mountain. Hearing that, Elric was eager to go too. "A dragon." Before Elric could finish his sentence, Zevern suddenly grabbed his hand tightly. He warned him cautiously he will go there later, with some mysterious intent hidden underneath. "Let's go." The two moved to the place where the dragon skeleton was. The size of it, this must be a Dragon King class. Zevern didn't dare take his eyes off Sun. "Yeah, looks like it's been here for over 4,000 years. Elric was suddenly struck hard by someone from behind, collapsing to the floor in helplessness. "You bastards!" The boy gritted his teeth in anger. "You guys!" I was so excited that I let my guard down. The person gently stroked his hair. "We mean no harm. We like you." But he said coldly, "Work is the top priority." Sun was observing and suddenly spoke up. "Wait, Javen." The guy jumped as if he'd been caught red-handed. "Yeah. What is it, son?" he asked suspiciously. "This thing, didn't it just move a second ago?" A noise nearby made Elric look over. Where were the others? The other team members were far away, probably taking the time to explore. "What is it? I've never seen that before." "Where? Let me see." Elric was about to call them, but the guy had already grabbed his shirt. "Save me!" Elric's vision quickly turned black. His eyes rolled back in shock. I shouldn't have trusted any of these clowns after having come all this way. Seizing the moment, the mage nearby created fire magic, but before he could finish chanting, a force blew everything away. "Get out of the way!" Elric was so shocked he couldn't even speak. The other person's arm was rolling on the ground. What the hell is going on? Large noises began to fill the boy's ears. He couldn't believe it, but he turned his face toward it. When he saw more clearly, the real shock began. Two people were running away in a panic. "Dragon, save me." Right behind them, the Dragon King's skeleton was chasing them. What they brought with them made his facial muscles completely freeze. Holy crap. Rocks and debris fell like rain along with a massive shadow approaching. Elric looked up in astonishment. Damn it. The Dragon King is just a skeleton, but it's still roaring loud enough to deafen me. His whole body trembled. Find a cave. Come on, Elric, this is also a test. Zevran was so scared that sweat poured down his face. The others were terrified by the tremors. Just find a cave. He forced his eyes wide to regain focus. Don't let the dragon spot you. Waiting a moment longer, Elric grew more anxious. The Dragon King held a source of magical energy in its mouth, but it wasn't launching an attack. Why is it just standing there? All those thoughts swirling in your head magic from a dragon's tongue is still just magic. Dragons are truly terrifying, but that delayed casting time is the source. Sun is safe. Don't let that fool get away. Even so, the magical energy drain is just too high, you reassure yourself. That's right. If I want to do this in one beat, I need a moment to prepare. Lich shouts to everyone there. Expedition team set up a defensive barrier and we'll take it down together. Come on. Magic tools are pulled out immediately. Sun and the other mages stand ready to cast the barrier. Everyone hold your positions. A solid double-layered shield is formed surrounding them all. Lich continues to shout, warning them, "It's coming!" A massive stream of energy erupts from the Dragon King's maw, aimed at nothing but the humans inside their defensive layer. The attack slams into the shield. It scatters in multiple directions. Cracks start to spread everywhere under the weight of that overwhelming power. Lich calculates carefully. This attack will last for 20 seconds. If we block it, we'll have a chance. Sun gritted his teeth, enduring the pain. Everyone hang in there, right in the midst of that intense battle. The entrance from before is still wide open, you notice that too. Running to the door will take about 17 seconds. The trap trigger is right underneath. If we can close the door in 3 seconds, everyone will survive. The situation shifts suddenly, making Lich gasp. A few people get caught in the Dragon King's attack. The shield burns intensely, incinerating their bodies until there's nothing left. Finally, only a few people remain standing behind Lich. He shouts at the top of his lungs. Now the dragon has stopped, so they quickly scramble to escape. Run, speed it up. If it catches us, we're toast. Elric is also in the chaotic crowd. Good if it keeps going like this. The smile on his lips stiffens at the harsh reality. Tiny cracks spread in the blink of an eye. The person next to him is struck by something, sending blood spraying everywhere. A few drops splatter onto his chin. The world seems to stop right at that moment. The body of the unfortunate soul falls backward, no longer in one piece. Elric opens his eyes wide, his voice trembling. No way! That mysterious creature lands on the ground with a thud. It laughs greedily as it wreaks havoc. Not just one, but countless others of its kind swarm in, facing the deformed bodies. He suddenly realizes the reality. The legends protecting the dragon spar. To the previous shock hasn't even faded, so he can't think of anything else. Suddenly a fireball flies in from behind. It lights up Elric's vision. It explodes upon hitting Spar 2, sending the creature flying. Sun is behind them, putting all his effort into attacking them. Elric, help me take it down! The sword in its hand swings down, but he dodges it. All around there are only screams, "Save me!" He runs silently, the streak of blood on his chin. I have to think of a way. They have reached a dead end, and the Dragon King is waiting. The only person who can do this is him. The stone on his necklace glows because every problem has a solution. The reaction from the necklace is clearer as the gem shines. A sharp pain surges into Elizabeth's head, making him squeeze his eyes shut. It flashes and quickly returns his vision. The scene before him suddenly changes. Why does everything look like this? I can see lines interwoven everywhere like a spider web. Sun is casting magic while turning toward Elizabeth, it seems. Sun is trying to say something. I can't hear anything. The other person's voice suddenly comes through. Dodge it, Elric? He asks, eyes half closed. What was that? When he notices behind him, the Spar 2 has lunged forward. It stabs its spear down, but it doesn't catch his movement. The creature reveals a look of astonishment on its face. Even he is surprised. Did I just dodge that? Lich's body dodges the incoming attacks on its own. He is so tense he breaks into a cold sweat. This isn't my imagination. I can see where they are going. I know how I need to dodge. The opponent's movements seem to slow down in his eyes. I can see where he is going to attack. His attention quickly shifts to the path ahead. If that's the case, then I'll be safe. As long as I follow those glowing dots. Deep down, Lich still hesitates. What if this is a trap? Unlike him, Sun is having a lot of trouble dealing with them. The spar too easily overwhelms the other members. No one can block its attacks. But they are still severely wounded around Lich. 3 more appear. No, I don't have time to think anymore. If things continue like this, in just a blink of an eye where he was standing before he is gone, the young man escapes the encirclement at high speed. Lich raises his voice to signal the expedition team. We're all going to die for nothing. Everyone follow me. Sun quickly follows him. Hurry up, everyone. Javen is also terrified and runs. Wait for me, guys. He says fearfully, Javen, wait. He takes a breath to regain his calm. Go to where my eyes can see. The whole group runs, following the guidance. When the Dragon King behind them starts roaring again, Lich avoids Sparto's weapon. This way. He warns them while running, get down. Agile and decisive movements help them get past the first layer. Jump Sun is in front, in charge of handling the ones approaching. Sun throws a fireball at the creature's left leg. The path behind the door is very close. We're almost at the exit. Just a little more. The first member grits his teeth and lunges through. Made it out. Thank goodness the others are safe too. I just needed to shut that door, but my hand froze mid-air even though I'd already reached out. I was curled up on the ground like a frightened mouse, trembling. Please, someone help me. The swarm of monsters was closing in fast. Damn it. If I want to close that door, I have to leave him behind. What should I do? This guy is such a pain. My mind was racing, torn apart, but even then, the boy reached out in desperation, and at that exact moment the monster lunged. I can't let him die! Elric immediately turned back to save him. The swarm on this side was targeting the same thing Elric. The boy opened his eyes in terror, feeling nothing. Elizabeth was right there, gasping for air. It seemed they couldn't get out. He looked bewildered, muttering, I'm still alive. Sun shouted, furious, Elizabeth, are you out of your mind? Her nonchalant attitude only made him angrier. It's that idiot's fault for having weak legs. Why are you yelling at me? The monsters stopped right in front of the gate. Then they just walked away like nothing happened. Can they not get out? He watched them intently. I'm only just thinking about this now. A complex network of sensory data mapped out the door's structure perfectly. There are signs of damage up there. Are these intruders with us after all? His vision zoomed in on the Dragon King, forming a sphere of energy in its maw. Everything magnified, revealing the fine details. A magical artifact was embedded in the dragon's skull, constantly leaking magical power. His train of thought was shattered by a loud crash overhead. What the? The boy screamed in a panic. The swarm is coming this way! One of them plummeted from the ceiling. Run! Just run! We're surrounded! Keep moving! Elric ignored the chaos. Sun was already running. But suddenly he stopped and looked back. Elric wasn't following them. He was still standing inside the ruins. Sun shouted in disbelief, Elric, what the hell are you doing? In response to his worry, Elric just flashed a bright smile. Go on ahead. Sun lunged toward him, but it was too late. The heavy door slammed shut. All that remained at the entrance was Sun's desperate scream, Elric! He pounded on the door with all his might, but it wouldn't budge. You bastard, damn it, why won't this thing open? Elric in his helplessness could only grit his teeth and tremble. Memories from 7 years ago, right after Elric was suspended, came flooding back. You're Elric, right? Nice to meet you. I'm Nemeto. Let's be friends. Elric shot him a cold, icy look, then uttered a single word that shocked Sun, get lost. That evening in the library, Elric sat alone at the table. A friendly hand reached out to grab his attention. Sun was back grinning, let's be friends. But the reply didn't change. Beat it. Get lost. Sun's spirits sank immediately. I didn't even get to say anything yet. During a certain lesson, they were gathered deep in the woods. You must be truly tenacious to become a real mage. You'll be graded based on the order in which you finish. So work hard, however, if you use magic, you'll be disqualified. At the signal, the students bolted. They started running, and among them the boy was struggling to keep up. In contrast, someone else's speed was so fast his footsteps were a blur. Sun was confident, leaving everyone behind as he headed straight for the finish line. He darted through the trees and bushes with ease. Sun stopped for a second, muttering, I'm probably halfway there. Should I take Elric with me? Because he wasn't watching where he was going, he tripped over a massive rock. His body spiraled backward into thin air. Whoa! Sun rolled on the ground like a wheel sliding down a steep slope, unable to stop. Luckily, his hand caught the edge of a cliff, but he was left dangling over a terrifying drop, his life hanging in the balance. Blood dripped from a wound on his head. "Is someone there? Help!" A group of people approached at the sound of his cries, but the boy and his friends just mocked him. "Using magic to climb up. Why are you whining?" Sun scowled at their sarcasm. He couldn't use magic, so his arms wouldn't stop shaking. "How long has it been? I can't hold on anymore." Sun was so desperate he started to cry. "I might die here, even if I get disqualified. Should I just use magic?" Tears streamed from the corners of his eyes. His fingers began to slip from the cliff edge. "If I fail, how am I ever going to face my dad again?" Just as Sun was about to give up and let go, damn it, another hand grabbed him. The boy struggled to pull him up, leaving Sun stunned. "Elric!" Sweat poured down Elric's face from the effort, but he strained to speak. "Hold on tight." A moment later, they were both safe, breathing heavily. Sun took off his shoe because of the injury. "Go on ahead. I've held you up long enough." Elric didn't seem to care, staring straight at the wound, a nasty bruise spreading across Sun's ankle. It made it impossible for him to move. In the end, Elric decided to help him anyway, which left Sun confused. "Hey, what are you doing?" "I told you to go on ahead," Elric replied coolly. "You said you wanted to be friends, didn't you?" Sun's cheeks flushed red with emotion. "Elric, you—" But those feelings were cut off by what Elric said next. "Forget it. Just give me those artifacts from your house, okay?" Elric chuckled. "That's fine, right? We're friends, after all." Sun scolded him, fuming. "You bastard! Are you trying to scam your own friend?" Elric retorted instantly. "I just saved your life, didn't I? The least you could do is pay me back. Besides, your hair looks so messy, but you're actually pretty good looking. Why don't you let your bangs down?" Sun snapped back. "Shut it, that's a matter of pride. Right now, you're just standing helplessly in front of this bastard's door. You're weaker than me, yet you love sticking your neck out. The sound of the others screaming only makes you angrier." Sun shouts to the person inside, "Elzik, just hold on a little longer. I'll call the elders, or at least your father. Please." As soon as he finishes, he rushes off at full speed. "Don't dial Z." Inside, he smiles to himself. "Thanks, son. That's exactly why I can't let you get dragged into danger." Facing him is the deafening sound of footsteps. The Dragon King and its guardians charge straight at him. Who do you think I am? Thanks to his analytical skills, he weaves through them with ease. The boy instantly realizes something. "Found you." Espato's arm snaps off. Their bodies attack relentlessly, but he dodges every single one. LLZ gains momentum and leaps off the ground. He reaches out to grab it. That's the one. The magical aura slowly shifts from blue to gold, coating him in armor. In Elizabeth's hand is another ancient relic, fighting fire with fire, huh? Elizabeth's eyes flare red like a madman's. "You bastards want a taste of your own medicine, too." The effects of fighting fire with fire cause his arm to burn violently and blood streams from his eye sockets. Usually you'd need mana to use this artifact. Elz lets the fire erupt on purpose. "Unlock! I'll use my own life force to replace the mana." The Spato nearby are scorched black by the intense heat. They shriek in panic, which satisfies him. This whole thing is just a test from the dragon. Something erupts from the chaos. If my guess is right, the Dragon King releases a massive wave of magical energy sweeping through the room. LZ nimbly jumps high into the air. The answer lies right there, back to the moment before. When he faced the Dragon King, the object embedded in its skull radiated a searing red magic. Elzik lands on the dragon's decaying bones. Right in front of him is the strange object stuck in the dragon's skull. This spear is the key as well as the answer to the test. The remaining Dragon King guardians scramble to climb up there. If my answer is wrong and this is just some sick prank by someone, then I'm done for here. Right behind him is the bloodthirsty Spato Legion. Even so, I will never give up because I am a Melvin Go. They claw and cling to the boy's body. A second later, a strange power is triggered, sending them into a panic. LZ is suddenly transported elsewhere. He stares wide-eyed at the scene. What just happened? Lightning from the heavens strikes the dragon. It flies majestically above its head, cold as an iceberg, constantly breathing out mist. Beside it is someone else with horns. Who is that? He turns abruptly with a wicked smile. Elzic's eyes tremble incessantly, his face turning grim. The ice dragon arches its chest, creating an energy orb in its mouth. The mysterious figure also raises his hand to summon magic. He doesn't need an incantation. He just unleashes it. A cold, murderous intent, the dragon's energy is funneled into one spot. As it fires the attack, he uses just one spear to block it all. Mervito spins the spear in his hand like a drill, wearing a delighted grin on his face, charging straight toward the dragon's mouth. Elzik watches the battle in amazement. This amount of mana. An 8-star mage number white patterns weave into the black background appearing on the weapon and his body. As he targets the dragon, the boy realizes the true power is far greater. The Dragon King only sees a flash of light blinding him. The battle in the sky affects the ground below. Everything is torn apart by the suction force. Mervito channels mana into the spear and swings it. As his weapon pierces through the Dragon King, everything turns white. In the end, only the arm clutching the spear handle remains. What? What the hell? The dragon is defeated, and Mervito stands on its head like a trophy. Everything has changed. Mervito's image becomes incredibly mysterious amidst a gloomy red hue. Elzic's eyes widen in shock. He thinks to himself, did he really kill the dragon? A black spiritual aura suddenly brushes past his back. A sinister voice speaks up. It's you. Mervito bares his teeth in a grin, his pupils glowing blood red. You're the one who will free me from this hellhole, my new vessel. Instantly, a source of mana floats toward him. The voice echoes through the air. Come, you and I shall become one. He is filled with ambition. And together we shall rule this world. Tiny human. Elzik isn't the least bit excited by this. On the contrary, he feels terrified. His gaze suddenly freezes for a split second as if he discovered something strange. It turns out several blue chains are emerging from the dragon's remains. Those chains quickly lock onto Mervito. He is startled for a moment upon hearing a strange voice. Demon King Mervito. A burst of brilliant energy flares up. You will burn here with me. Elzik is stunned from one surprise to the next. What a demon king. The dragon's gaping maw opens wider and wider. He is sucked inside by those mysterious chains. Even though you and I were sealed in this place thousands of years ago. But this time everything has changed. His murderous intent shifts toward LZ as a high-quality vessel appears before him. Black magic spills from his eye sockets and mouth. It makes it impossible for him to scream. Even with his teeth clenched, the darkness keeps pouring in. The dragon's bones also radiate a blinding blue magic. This isn't the dragon's test. It's the Demon King's trap. Elzik collapses helplessly as he is being possessed. His body is about to crack from the overload. Am I really going to die like this? Every joint inside him felt like it was about to be torn apart, only to be crushed into tiny fragments. Morpheus let out a gloating laugh, the mana of Sanat making the vessel's body even stronger. Lich was being tortured to the point of passing out. Damn it, he and every member of his clan had sacrificed their lives to drive back the demons in the Great Demon War. Afterward, his parents also faced death, leaving only his sister and himself. The royal family, the magic tower, and the vassal families had all revealed their rotten true colors. Even the person he trusted and relied on the most, he was desperately trying to take everything that belonged to him and his sister. The power tore at him, stretching every part of his body. When we tried to protect them, his sister said sadly, "Please, little brother." He didn't even care and just walked away. We were abandoned. The boy screamed in silent agony as his form twisted, facing those who had betrayed and humiliated the Elric family back then. They could only throw stones at them. What can I even do? The doors of the ruined villa slowly closed. It doesn't exist. Damn it, no matter what. I will heal these magic blockages and restore the clan. His vision faded as he vowed to make the traitors regret this. Lich was suddenly pulled back by the sound of a heartbeat. No, I haven't even started yet. It can't end like this. Melvin, go! I won't let you devour me like this! He determinedly fought to regain control with his own power. You damn bastard! Morpheto was pushed back by a wave of blue magical energy. I hope this voice will reach our descendants in the future. He was shocked. What is this power? In the void, an arm reached out. Before Morpheto could even recover, he was consumed by blue flames, while Elric's eyes crackled with lightning. Right here. According to our agreement, the first demon king shall be devoured. He raised a hand and blew away the shroud of dark magic. The demon king cried out helplessly in pain. Impossible! He was overwhelmed by his power. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Everything around them turned into a simple white space again. A striking pattern remained on Elric's arm, and the young man looked vaguely at his now translucent hand. Where am I? A beautiful sunset scene appeared along with someone's back. He watched dreamily. "Who are you? Why do you seem so familiar?" The scholar replied, "We are the first scholars to pursue the pinnacle of magic." Elric was surprised. "Is this the voice I heard before?" "The magic you see was originally white. However, those who fought over greater power brought misfortune to the world because they were corrupted by demons. Dark mana defiled it, staining everything red and black. We reached the decision that this had to be fixed. And to atone for our past..." The other's lips curled into a smile. "We created a guild in this world." A giant horn appeared, making him wonder, "What is that? Is that a demon?" "The Demon King Zero. 2 hands cradling the core of the demon lord within a guild that can purge demons at the root." The scholar's arm looked partially human. He slowly raised it, and countless dragons dove down from the sky. "Eliminating all demons is our mission." However, the other hand did the same thing just as a giant monster crawled out. "Demons will never disappear completely. They will always return." Surrounding the scholar were those very evil forces. "You must keep destroying them time after time. Until then, the guild cannot be disbanded." The person's fingers danced as if playing a melody. Beneath, the demon waves of white smoke rose and the roar of dragons echoed. But he didn't flinch as they attacked the scholar all at once. "One day in the future..." He joyfully swung his cloak, revealing a galaxy within it. The earth tethered to the demon was dragged along while the heavens shone brilliantly. Both created a cataclysmic battle until nothing was left. But amidst that vast power, a red-eyed creature intervened. That giant hand reached out toward the scholar. Just then Elric's vision was pulled far away, and he shouted in panic to warn him, "Look out!" When he looked again, the hand had returned to normal. Back in the familiar bedroom, sunlight streamed softly through the window. He hurriedly wiped away his sweat, noticing the person beside him. Lich asked, "Son, are you okay?" His friend replied gruffly, "What?" He didn't shy away from calling him out, "Are you crying?" The young man immediately denied it, me crying as if... Actually, Son was just embarrassed and turned his face away. "Damn it, why did he have to wake up right now?" The person on the bed smirked, teasing him. "You're literally crying." Son's face darkened from Elric's sarcasm. "It's fine you can cry. I still remember you were crying back in the cave, too." He turned toward him, looking like he was about to fight. Elric immediately backed off. Sorry." In the end, he still took a punch from his friend. "Anyway, did you bring the rescue team to save me?" Son was still angry. "Yeah, that's right, you sicko," he complained indignantly. "Couldn't you have used magic to heal this bruise instead of just giving me an egg?" He immediately refused. "You should be grateful that I gave you anything at all, you jerk." The young man muttered a few more complaints. "You're a clan leader for crying out loud." "Keep calling me that, go ahead," you snapped. His only response was a cold, piercing stare. "What's with that look, you sick freak?" As he quickly turned away, I blurted, "Wait, what? I didn't say anything." Son scolded him while keeping an eye on him. "And let me tell you this, if you ever pull a stupid stunt like that again..." Before he could finish, the guy in the hospital bed suddenly asked him to stand up. Son looked confused. "What for?" Son's mood soured instantly. "Shut up and stand up." The threat made him scramble to obey. As they stood face to face, Son reached out to measure him. "Did you get taller?" "Go look at yourself in the mirror." Even Elzic was shocked. What the hell happened? "Has my body actually changed?" Son asked, worried. "What on earth happened? Tell me, and what about the dragon?" The guy winked mischievously. "Sorry, son, I can't tell you yet, but I promise I'll be the first to tell you when the time is right." Luckily, Son just patted his shoulder. "Fine, whatever. Elzic, I'm sure you've already got something planned. But for real, this bastard is keeping secrets even from me." The guy felt awkward and tried to soothe his friend. "Don't be mad, okay?" Elzic quickly changed the subject. "Anyway, what about that cave?" Son sat back down and peeled an egg. "My family is taking over that site." He turned back to the bed and added, "You must be busy excavating it, huh?" But contrary to that expectation, Son replied, "Nope. They're just guarding it. They aren't letting anyone in or out." Elzic gasped, "What, why?" Son shrugged. "Because it belongs to you. You're the one who found it. They can't just let people do whatever they want with it. Legally, a dragon's cave belongs to the finder, but usually big academies could easily muscle their way in by requesting excavation rights. The Magic Tower and the Academy are going to go crazy trying to break in there, you know." The person in front of him flashed a sheepish grin that made Son cringe. What the hell are you looking at like that? He said happily, thanks, man. In his heart, he thought, I'm sure the Nemeto family would love to have excavation rights too, but they're still doing this for me. Sun scoffed, gross, you're such a clown. Seriously, cut that out. The two of them high-fived perfectly in sync. Laughing at what you damn jerk, he retorted. Thanks for the compliment, you sicko, just as they were having fun, Elzik. And suddenly thought of something else. Wait, crap. The greedy look on the headmaster's face crossed his mind. Now is not the time for this. That old geezer must be doing everything he can to get those rights. His rage began to bubble up. He actually dared to try and finish me off. That grin he gave made Sun's blood run cold. What kind of crazy crap is that guy plotting now? Every time he smiled that sinister smile, something was bound to happen. Elzik called out to his friend in a sugary voice, Sun. Sun gritted his teeth and stepped back. What are you planning? He leaned in close to Sun. I need a favor. The young man went on high alert. I don't hear you. I don't hear anything. But the words reached his ears anyway. Announce that I've been seriously injured. In the end, Sun could only brood. Damn it, I heard him. Elsewhere, someone walked across the dignified floor tiles. Their red cloaks stood out under the sunlight. Countless soldiers stood guard in front of the hospital. The Royal Magic Division. Someone in the crowd asked, Sir, could you repeat that? The butler adjusted his glasses slightly. Student Elzik is currently unconscious due to severe injuries sustained during the trip to the Dragon's Cave. Therefore, I ask that you all please leave. The aristocrats there looked flustered. I went to the trouble of coming all this way. And you're telling me to go back? Many others were disgruntled, too. What about the excavation rights? Are you just going to leave that cave empty? A large crowd gathered in front of the hospital. Why is the Nemeto family blocking the entrance to this hospital? Inside the room, Elzik silently cursed them. You idiots! Kadonis, the spokesperson for the Nemeto family, walked in with a light snack. Please get some rest. He didn't answer that request. Even though the sound outside was blocked by the glass doors, it could still be heard. Only when the room door finally closed did the space turn peaceful, and Felix could finally let out a long sigh. Hey, he said, looking over with hesitation. Why don't you stop with the staring and say something? How much longer do you intend to gawk at me, Murphyto? Felix retorted, his voice strained. Sammy chimed in. Show some respect to the revered Demon King standing right before you. The great Demon King who once threw the entire world into peril and chaos. Murphyto Felix was now being looked at by him with total indifference. Maybe I should just call you Felix then. Even though he was furious with just a wave of a hand, the Demon King was suppressed. You. He was now nothing more than a malevolent spirit. Murphyto, keep screaming if you want, Felix said, looking perfectly calm. A cotton ball would probably give a better massage than you. The Nemeto family's hospital kept its doors tightly shut to everyone. Inside the room, he stood alone, his hand resting lightly against his chest, wondering about his circumstances. Just as I thought, it wasn't my imagination. The dragon's heart, the energy source containing the absolute power of the ancient dragon, a dragon that clearly died after being pierced by the Demon King's spear. Could the dragon's heart inside his own body right now be... It was still beating like any other heart. No, that wasn't right. He felt there was something different. He rubbed his chin deep in thought. I only have memories of the moment the Demon King tried to take over this body. Elzik then looked to his side. Stop staring at me and say something, will you? How long do you plan on looking at me like that, Murphy, he asked, while the spirit scowled incessantly. I believe I told you not to call me that. The mighty Demon King who once plunged the world into fear and misery. Murphyto Felix. In ancient times when gods ruled the world, this demon deity representing darkness had 4 subordinates. The first was Phoenix, tasked with annihilation. Next was Yensenai, the symbol of madness. Beside them was Phonication, the icon of lust. And finally, Sozenan Betka, the source of original sin. Murphyto Felix, the supreme and most powerful demon king in legends. Why was this name bound to him? He lashed out, I already told you. My name was granted by the great demon deity himself. But he let out a long yawn, making the spirit grit his teeth. You! Murphyto swiped at Elric. I swear I will tear you to pieces. Elric, not caring at all, replied. Good grief, you're noisy as hell. His complaints only agitated the spirit further. Is the Demon King always this stupid? I've told you so many times, yet you still don't get it. Are you hard of hearing because of your old age? 1,000 years I waited for 1,000 years, yet my mana was taken by someone like this. I am the Demon King Murphy. To Felix, I once made the entire world bow at my feet. He stood alone before the burning red light. That was his reason for existing. A dragon pierced through the clouds to fly toward Murphy Toe, yet those massive wings beat across the vast sky. Dragon King Sanak let out a deafening roar as he initiated the battle, and the Demon King stood ready to welcome it with an excited grin. Murphy Toe's spear clashed with the dragon's magic. "He blocked my path!" Chains shot out from Sanak's tongue, wrapping tightly around him. Demon King Murphy Toe Felix. He declared firmly, "You will be buried here along with me." The Dragon King bound both of them together. Damn it, his body was trapped deep beneath the chains. And just like that, for 1,000 years, he laughed again when he found something. "I waited and I waited." As Elzic's group entered the cave, Murphy Toe whispered, "You finally came, boy." The voice sent a chill down his spine. "The vessel will free me from this seal." The perfect vessel, excellently completed. All the trials right before my eyes, I almost succeeded. I had seized control of his body and soul, but when Elzic awakened, I lost the initiative. Everything I planned has fallen apart. Now Murphy Toe only exists as a remnant spirit. Now only a fragment of demon energy remains, and even my manifestation is... He furrowed his brows. What kind of power could possibly absorb me? The person next to him suddenly mocked him. "Give it a rest, stop acting like you're some kind of high and mighty being." The guy started cursing loudly as he examined the pendant. "How dare a piece of trash like you? If this were the me from 1,000 years ago, I would have... You bastard! This must be the work of those Melvin ghosts. What do they think they are? Back then I stood alone against the entire world." Elric narrowed his eyes, remembering that voice. "I hope our message will reach you." In the moment his soul was wrestled back, he felt it very clearly. "To my descendant in the future one day." The stone statue and the scholar's face bore a striking resemblance. Was that voice yours? The pressure from before it still lingered faintly in his memories. "According to the covenant, the first demon shall be devoured." Elric was stunned. "Wait, if devoured means... Have I absorbed the Demon King's power?" Elric looked at the pendant in his hand. "So this magic pendant is a tool to devour the Demon King." "No, it's a tool to devour the demon race." He looked calmly at the Demon King beside him, who was still being grumpy. "What now? What are you staring at?" Meanwhile, he was curious whether he could devour other demons just like Morpheto. The first demon, this means there will be a second and a third. A wicked smile bloomed on his face. "Get ready, Demon King, you're all going to be broke soon." Morpheto didn't hear him, but he still shuddered. "What is this chilling sensation?" The two of them walked up to a high cliff, which made him wonder, why on earth are you wandering out here? When an adult talks to you, you should know how to answer properly. Elizabeth looked at him with contempt. "You're too loud! Shut up, you piece of garbage, Shadow." He laid out a black mat, trying to figure out how to use the power of the pendant. "I need to confirm a few things." With his fingers interlaced and pressed against his chest, he took a meditative stance and closed his eyes. Elric blocked out everything around him to focus his mind. When he opened his eyes again, his surroundings were immediately enveloped by a surge of power. In that scene, a few blue roses bloomed, and a ladybug captivated by the blue hue flew over in a hurry. It landed on a delicate petal and began to drink the nectar. The insect's movement caused a petal to fall, and a breeze sent them drifting aimlessly. As each blue rose petal drifted past the place where he was meditating, Elric could sense everything around him. There was a ladybug flapping its wings. He felt the sensation of a gentle breeze brushing past. He slowly opened his eyes. I can see and feel everything, if my suspicions are correct. In Elric's hands, the magic was analyzed into dense frequencies. His fingers began to curl into his palms. Elric clenched his fist, his face mysteriously hidden in the shadows. The Dragon King's heart reacted instantly. His fingertips glowed burning brightly. Then a blinding flame erupted into a tall pillar. Morpheto witnessed the scene with terrified eyes, breaking into a cold sweat. Dragon magic? A normal person is using dragon magic. His fingers continued to command the magic. Even with the Melvin Go bloodline, this was going a bit too far. Sparks flew chaotically through the air. Elric took a deep breath, but his expression quickly shifted into a smirk. Dust and smoke were all that remained after that test. It's clear now I can use magic. Finally, the miserable magical blockage that tortured me all those years. Elric remembered vividly the humiliation from the Melvin Go family. A prestigious magic family. Just how much further will they be dragged through the mud? Someone like him is the grandson of our first headmaster. It's unacceptable. Was he just some kid the headmaster picked up off the street? How can a mage not even be able to create a single circle? Those pieces of trash only know how to run their mouths without knowing their place. Everyone who betrayed the Melvin Go family and abandoned me right here. He swore an oath to the heavens and the earth. I will make them regret it. Down below at the podium, the sound of movie cameras rang out incessantly. Below, reporters kept targeting Kadu, trying to get to the truth. Is it true that student Elizabeth Melvin Go is in a coma? And what about the rights to excavate the dragon's lair? His sharp face appeared clearly before all the reporters' cameras, and he replied calmly, "The official announcement will be made at the Magic Tower, so please verify the official statement." Ending the press conference, the man returned to a room. Kadu stood trembling before a young man filled with fear. "Young master, please don't make me do things like this." Sun was rubbing his temples. Hearing the door open, he didn't even bother to turn around. "You're here, good job, Kadu." Trembling, he slowly carried over a stack of papers. "It's nothing, sir. The noisy incidents you cause every time you're with Elric almost killed me." Sun just let out a light laugh. "Ha ha." Kadu sincerely warned Sun, "But if your scam is exposed, the Magic Tower and the royal family won't support you. Can you handle the consequences?" He shrugged nonchalantly and handed over a handkerchief. "Ah, well." Sun remained as calm as ever. "Elric said he's already calculated it all. So I will trust him. You're covered in cold sweat. Wipe it off." Elizabeth's face at that moment was truly perverted. High risk, high reward. But on the surface, he acted as if nothing had happened. Inside, Sun cursed at Elizabeth. "That bastard. Does he even know how much I've had to endure?" He took the handkerchief to wipe his face and softly asked about him, "Where did Elizabeth go?" Sun shook his head, replying, "I don't know. He went crawling off somewhere." In his hand was a letter delivered to him. "I'm heading out for a bit. What are friends for, right? I'm counting on you." Kadu sighed inwardly, clenching the paper until it crumpled. With that weak body, where could he even go? Suddenly, his eyes seemed to notice something unusual. Kadu immediately reported it to Sun. Young master, there's a problem." Sun was still dazed, not understanding anything. "What is it?" He seemed unable to speak, holding out a sealed envelope. That..." Before the words could leave his mouth, the door was kicked wide open. "Little brother, what kind of conspiracy are you plotting without letting your sister know?" Sun jumped, stumbling as he stood up. "Sister, why are you here?" She strode in, aggressively smiling in a perverted way as she looked at him. "Why are you so surprised?" Thassa, a fire mage with an intense aura, shrugged nonchalantly. "Is it really that strange for a sister to come visit her little brother?" The Imperial Magic Tower and the Orthodoxy Alliance had each produced the greatest geniuses of the century in the same generation. They were the 3 stars destined to lead the Empire, and they were known as the New 3 Stars. Thassa turned to scold Sun. "You didn't show my letter to Liz lately. I've been..." So scatterbrained. She was the youngest Grand Mage in history, and one of those 3. Sun's face turned pitch black as he desperately tried to pivot the conversation. "So why are you really here?" She cast a side-eyed glance and smirked. "I heard your friend is sick. As someone with a magic license, I couldn't just stand by." "Is Liz not in her room?" "The kid is elsewhere." His eyes darted around frantically, his mind flashing to that piece of paper. He panicked inwardly. "Oh crap, if she enters that sick room, I'm dead meat. My sister is way too nosy. I have to get her out of here before she finds out." He turned his face away, making excuses. "Liz isn't in a state to see anyone right now." Thassa narrowed her eyes at her brother, full of suspicion. Is that so?" She grabbed his trembling body. "In that case, stop bothering the doctors and go home, brother." Her powerful fire aura flooded the entire room. "Are you giving me orders?" Thassa leaned in close to Sun, commanding, "Let's continue our conversation. What happened to the rights to excavate the Dragon Cave?" Only now did it dawn on Sun, the Dragon Cave. He'd forgotten that this witch was a dragon fanatic. Her eyes were locked onto her brother as she pressed him. "No one has claimed it yet, have they?" He trembled, unsure how to answer. "That's up to Elizabeth to decide." Thassa's gaze looked like she wanted to devour him whole. Finally, she lashed out, giving her brother a rough shove. "Well, there's no helping it." Thassa's forceful grip finally loosened from Sun's collar. She stepped back and started to leave, but didn't forget to add, "When your friend wakes up, contact me first. If you don't..." Thassa made a slashing motion across her throat as if to say he'd be finished in a heartbeat. Then prepare to get pummeled, little brother. In Sun's head, he was already imagining the various ways he'd be tortured if he got caught. I have to do something fast. Meanwhile, a trembling voice echoed from behind. Young master, has she left yet? The butler's face was ashen, standing there shaking, which made Sun jump as if he'd seen a ghost. Newsboys were shouting all over the capital. The heir of the prestigious magical dynasty is unconscious. Despite the crowd at the newspaper shop, a mysterious figure in black robes muttered, Sun is handling everything well in my place, huh? At that moment, Elric spotted an acquaintance near the newspaper stand. Well, look who it is. Our dean is quite photogenic, isn't he? His gaze remained cold as he stared at the man. Keep smiling while you still can. Dean. Congratulations, future headmaster. Javen was sucking up to the dean. Now you can finally do what you've always wanted. Don't be so hasty. The dean frowned, warning him the election hasn't even started yet. Javen cracked a sinister smile. I was too impatient. I just can't fathom your dedication to protecting the future of the academy and its students, Dean. Flattered, the dean smirked, pretending to be humble. Honestly, I told you I haven't been promoted to headmaster yet. The dean sipped his tea and asked casually, by the way, how is that student Liz doing? Javen bowed his head and reported, I heard she's barely clinging to life every day. Oh, what a shame. He quickly offered some sinister theories. But if she wakes up, it'll be a huge problem. We should hire some assassins, too. The dean unleashed his crushing pressure. Silence. Feeling the terrifying aura, Javen trembled. I apologize. After the intimidation, the dean returned to his usual state, subtly probing, a professor position will be opening up after the election. I wonder who will take that seat. Javen looked confused. Pardon. The dean continued, I'm just the dean after all. I have no idea what's happening outside the academy. Javen quickly realized the dean was keeping him in the dark. Elated, he bowed his head to receive his orders. I won't let you down. The dean smiled a terrifying smile. In the dead of night in the capital, a black-robed figure hid in a dark alley. Liz pulled down her hood and muttered, which skyscraper should I start with? Her blue eyes began to activate the mind's eye. Through the mind's eye, she could see the other side of the world. If I find the hidden dimension and channel the dragon's heart mana into it, suddenly a surge of power appeared in her eyes. A massive earthquake shook the area as Liz channeled the intense force. A thunderous explosion echoed at that very spot. Finally, he was steady on his feet, able to use magic without those complex incantations. Elric let out a sigh of relief. This first step was solid, and at last he was at the starting line. But Murphyto frowned, sneering, You're pathetic. Is that all the magic you can manage? Even with my power at your disposal. Just a simple jump. Are you using some kind of trick? The joy was short-lived. Elric gritted his teeth, his brow furrowing. He was right, he needed to be faster, stronger. Murphyto's taunting voice still echoed in his ears. Elric, you bastard! How dare you ignore me while I'm talking to you? Back in my day, humanity, the demon realm, and even the dragon clan would tremble at the mere sight of me. Whenever he spoke, something called the conscious seal within the dragon's true law would take shape and manifest. Elric began to activate the power of the dragon seal. To trigger the magic, Murphyto stood amidst the raging flames, looking completely bewildered. A sinister smile spread across Elric's face as he crouched his legs primed and ready. Waiting only for the signal the moment it echoed in his mind, he shot forward like a bullet toward the other side, leaving the other stunned jaw hanging wide open. No way! After that miraculous jump came something even more spectacular, a flight. Elric's spiritual eye radiated a fierce surge of energy as he aimed for the towering house in the distance. A moment ago it had been miles away, yet he was still soaring through the air with no sign of slowing down. Even he couldn't help but gasp, whoa, so high. Elric wiped away sweat, feeling a thrill of excitement. Incredible. Simple, yet extremely effective. Upon reaching a suitable spot, he deployed the technique a second time, accelerating even faster. All right. Murphyto followed close behind, his heart filled with bitter resentment toward Elric. A mere human kid barely having learned magic, already mastering the conscious seal and dual casting. An eternal enemy of the demon realm, the Melvingo clan. Even the most powerful of the Melvingo wouldn't necessarily be a match for this guy. Suddenly, Murphyto let out an excited, well no, that wasn't it. A single person, their face shrouded in darkness beneath a large baggy hood, appeared with a terrifying, sinister smile. Remembering that, he muttered to himself in self-reproach, "Oh God, I shouldn't be thinking like that. No matter the cost. Before he gets any stronger, I have to take over that body and crush this dangerous sprout." His mind was racing with schemes. Is there any way? Outwardly, Elric still looked calm, but deep down he seemed winded. The conscious seal was amazing, but it was so hard to utilize it on his own. Elric clenched his fists. To get stronger, he had to understand the core of the dragon law. He needed a teacher who could keep secrets within the academy. Since it had already been taken over by the Vidric faction, there was no one capable of teaching him. Finally, as dawn broke, Elric touched down. At the very least, he needed someone on Hace's level. But there was no way they would accept him as a student. Suddenly, his memories flickered back. Elric thought of Mr. Uden. If he were still around... No, not even his dad or uncle. A bold thought suddenly struck him. Wait. Murphyto, unaware he was being targeted, was still grumbling and annoyed, plotting to stomp out the sprout. He still had feet, didn't he? Elric suddenly walked over and made a request. "Hey, Murphyto, can you teach me magic?" Why did I only think of this now? Murphyto was surely the best fit to be his teacher. The entity looked bewildered. What the hell are you talking about?" He immediately turned away, not bothering to pay attention. Elric had to call out again before Murphyto reacted, though he still acted bored and shrugged. "And what would I gain from that?" Elric tried to entice him. "I'll create a new vessel for you using alchemy." But the entity didn't care, retorting, "You think a measly human can create a vessel for me, then make me strong enough to do it?" Murphyto sneered and shook his head. "Still not good enough." Elric remained confident, laughing as he said, "What can you do if I don't get stronger?" Seeing him still hesitate, Elric tried to compromise. "Fine, you suggest the conditions then." But the very next second, the entity replied flatly, "I refuse. Why on earth would I enlighten you? I might consider it if you become one of my kind." Murphyto's eyes flickered with devious delight. Deep down, he was thrilled. Just look at that confused face. So satisfying, trying to play me, were you? The more Murphyto thought about it, the more amused he became. Even though he was still too weak to devour him if he secretly used dark magic on him while teaching. The boy would grow stronger and stronger. At the same time, his soul would be corrupted by that dark magic, and then I'll devour him. His eyes betrayed his predatory intent as he broke into that twisted smile only a demon could wear. "Now kneel down and beg me to take you on as my disciple. Know your place and obediently become my vessel, you stupid Melvin." Suddenly, he bluntly brushed him off, cursing, "Oh, screw that, to hell with it." This was a method Murphyto never saw coming. Listen to this. As Murphyto stood there with his mouth agape in shock, Elric barked at him, "There's a limit to how much you can demand, you know. Do you still not understand what kind of situation you're in?" Elric's calculating smile shocked Murphyto even more. "What, look at yourself right now. You look like nothing more than a cowardly devil who got scared. You cannot endure this humiliation." He lunged forward, wanting to fight. "You damn bastard!" Elric didn't even move, simply using his mental binding seal on him. Immediately, his mouth was locked shut. Elric chuckled gleefully. "Oh ho, that worked better than expected." Now Murphyto could only mumble, unable to utter a single coherent word, but it still made Elric cover his ears and groan, "Oh my God, you're way too noisy." The guy was sweating bullets, his finger still pointing right at Elric, trying to assert himself. "There is no way I'll submit to just a mental seal." But Elric switched to a different seal. With a cute gesture, Murphyto immediately started pouting and winking. Both Elric's eyes and ears were shocked to the core, and he immediately turned away, feeling speechless. A wave of revulsion rose to his throat. "Ugh, my eyes, good lord." After looking back, the guy was still wearing those 2 pink rabbit ears. Elric got goosebumps, horrified. Why on earth did I tell him to do that disgusting thing? Good grief, he felt like he'd throw up if he looked any longer. Elric's face went pale, but he tried to set conditions with him. "Stay calm. I don't want to see that thing from earlier again, all right? If you change your mind, write everything down. Explain the mental sealing magic here, and I'll undo it for you." But after reading all the contents, the notebooks were still just lying on the ground. Murphyto still didn't touch them. "Do you think I'll compromise over something this small? For me, someone who endured being sealed for 1,000 years. Yet Elric didn't seem to care at all. Should I use this time to train?" By nightfall, the guy had cooled off halfway and thought, "I will be generous and forgive you if you admit you're wrong." The next day he kept practicing steadily, but didn't pay any attention to the muzzled devil. He should have been begging for lessons on new magic by now. Elric kept using magic regularly, but the one whose mind was in turmoil was Merfito. What is happening to me? And the day after that, he was about to break from these tedious days here. It's crushing my spirit. I'm going to teach him anyway. Should I pretend to compromise? But he had only written half of it on the paper, and Merfito was still trying to comfort himself. No, I cannot lose. The basic principle of the mental sealing technique is, seeing him trembling like that, Elric sat next to him and laughed playfully. Pfft, do you really have to go that far? The anger in his heart started to surge again. No, I am the Demon King Merfito Flirt. There is no way I'm handing this over to a human. But the anger didn't last long. Merfito felt a different energy flowing through him. Huh, what's this? Why am I acting like his little puppy? Elric sat with his hands clasped deep in thought. The basic principle of the mental seal is ancient knowledge that I can't find in any book. Looking at the scribbles on the paper, he couldn't help but offer praise. Good, very good. Shouldn't you be happy that you're helping me out? After that, he used the mental release on the cute act, then started demanding more. What about the info after this? Elric pointed to the ellipsis below. Can you write in more detail, please? Maybe I'll let you speak then. Isn't it a bit boring? Because you can't talk. Merfito heard it like a lightning strike, unable to hide the rage bubbling up. You son of a bitch! Elric even scolded him for not doing a thorough job. What the hell is this? Don't you know you should have written more than the day before? Which jerk decided this? Seeing the look on his face, Elric offered a compromise. How about you write multiple times a day, a little bit each time, and I'll lift the silence for 3 days deal. What do you think, take it? After that, it was a session of him nitpicking everything. By the way, your handwriting is fucking awful. Try to write a bit neater. Oh wait, I've changed my mind. Multiple times isn't enough. Why don't you just write it all out at once? Have you ever thought about teaching me some ultimate techniques while you're at it? Just you wait. His heart hid deep resentment, and dark magic lay hidden within these notes. I'm going to completely tear your body and soul apart, you clueless brat. Even though I've only learned the first part, I still haven't stopped training. But with just that much power, Merfito has been watching from behind for days. And he's so annoyed and confused. How could this be impossible? Why is there no sign of the dark magic taking effect? I clearly remember putting it in there. Just then, Elric grabs the back of his neck. What's with that look, Merfito? Elric glances back with a smirk. Your face clearly shows you're up to something. You're trying to pull something shady with my body, aren't you? Nothing happened, though. Is that disappointing for you? Having his secret exposed. Merfito snaps his head away, denying it. I don't know what you're talking about. Elizabeth laughs, amused by Merfito's feigned innocence. Did you really think I was stupid enough to learn everything you gave me? Without checking it over first, well, that's fine. Thanks anyway. Because of you, I've reached a whole new level. Merfito's heart is in a panic, cursing in frustration. He knew, damn it all to hell. Meanwhile, Elric keeps flipping through the notebook, searching for new formulas. Anything else, I'm getting stronger and stronger, and I don't want to stop for a second. Merfito grumbles from the side. Are you dreaming, you human brat? You human... Seeing that he won't cough up any more magic, Elric starts threatening him. Fine then. Back to silence then. But Merfito stands his ground. There's nothing left. Elric's eyes go wide in shock. What? Merfito shouts, speaking bluntly. Other than my sincere heart incantation, there is nothing else I can teach you. Nothing else at all. High in the sky, birds scatter in a panic. Elric freezes, starting to get a sinking suspicion about that sincere heart incantation. Does he mean the highest level mental seal spell beyond even the voice of the gods? A mental incantation. Merfito waves his hand and speaks straight to him. You couldn't possibly comprehend it at your current level. You might end up losing your mind and getting possessed. Elric starts to feel his mind going blank, troubled. He wasn't lying. What do I do now? But the next words from Merfito make him drift into a daze. Magic can only be perfected on the battlefield. That has been the destiny of your Melvingo family line since the very beginning. Magic can only be perfected on the battlefield. Even the people in the family tree admitted as much. That is the motto of the Melvingo family, those who will ceaselessly protect the continent from demons. Father taught my sister and me about the honor of the Melvingo clan, over the land left in ruins from the war with the demons, even though he didn't say a single word. My father, you were severely wounded by the aftermath of the war. Surely you still remember the days of fighting side by side as a mage beside him, looking toward his distant future on that afternoon? Little Elric ran up to show off. Dad, when I grow up and go to the battlefield, I'll be able to use super cool magic just like you, right? Great Mage Elric, here I come. But he completely avoided his son's gaze. That's enough, Elizabeth. His mother had to step in for his father, who was at a loss. I've told you already, dear. To become a powerful mage, what must you do? Elizabeth slumped dejectedly, answering her question. Study, I said. Exactly, learn. Her following words were like daggers to his heart, such harsh words. You can't just have a ridiculous facade of powerful magic like your father. Haven't I told you that your grandfather became the greatest mage, even before he became the strongest person on the continent? Elric's father trembled and turned softly, trying to compromise with her. My lady, I am still the head of the house. But his mother cut him off flatly. Respected husband, stop filling the children's heads with delusions. Honestly, none of the men in the Melvin Go family know how to listen, although our family is always good at listening to Mom. Even so, his father still managed to give his son a quick warning. Even so, magic should only be perfected on the battlefield, my son. After that, he vanished without a trace right in front of him before dragging his wife away, leaving instructions for his son and daughter. Elizabeth, make sure you finish reading the summary on the relationship between ancient magic circle systems and the new era language system by the end of the day, got it? Hey, look after Elizabeth, okay? He didn't want to listen, complaining, Mom, no, don't. I want to play with Dad today. Finally, he was dragged away by his sister without mercy. Ouch! Sis, my ear is about to fall off. Let me go, damn it! Elric's father tried to speak up for his son. My lady, studying is good, but after all, they are still just children. But she didn't listen to a word of it. That's because you spoil the boy too much, giving him bad habits. Like father, like son, truly. And then that rainy night at the mansion, sobbing could be heard everywhere. Hick, hick, hick. Father, mother, your father's illness grew worse by the day, and mother, who cared for him morning and night, suddenly collapsed as well. Father spent his final breaths beside mother, and they both passed away peacefully. Before he left, he offered a final apology. I'm sorry, my love, you always shone brighter than anyone else. It was all my fault. Elizabeth's mother, now frail and thin, smiled gently. Ever since I met you and had these wonderful children, there hasn't been a day I wasn't happy. They held each other's hands tightly, whispering sweet words deep in their hearts. Thank you, my love. You are the one who raised our children to be such good people. You are truly a wonderful mother. Elizabeth's mother whispered, Hey, are you there? Hay bowed his head, saying yes. She urged him, Please take care of your little brother, okay? I'm sorry and thank you. Hay bit his lip to keep from sobbing aloud. He turned to his son, his voice breaking. Elizabeth, I'm sorry. Your magical blockage is all my fault. Elizabeth sobbed. Dad, he wailed. I'm so scared. How could you leave like this? He couldn't stop crying. If you're gone, what will the kids and I do? He raised his hand, touching his son's cheek gently, feeling the warmth of his father's palm, which made him stop crying. He whispered, looking back on my whole life compared to my time as a mage. Fighting on the battlefield, I was much happier in the days I spent being your father. Elric grabbed his father's hand, tears still trickling down. When you hear me say this, you don't even need to become a mage, Dad. With a pale face and eyes closed, he still tried to whisper, I only hope that you will live happily with those around you. As soon as he finished speaking, his hand fell lifelessly. Elric sat watching the scene, frozen as if he couldn't process what had just happened. Then he tremblingly said, Dad. Until he closed his eyes forever, his hand was still tightly clasped in his wife's, never letting go. He felt like he had lost his soul, staring blankly, as if refusing to accept reality, then shouted aloud, Father? The scene shifts to the present. Elric is walking through a sun-drenched forest. But Father, you know. You were wrong to tell me I didn't need to be a mage. If I'm not strong enough, I will be discarded in this reality. His hand clenched tight. That is why I must become stronger so that no one can ever turn their back on me again. His silhouette appeared bathed in the rays of the sun. Magic can only be perfected on the battlefield. That's right. The thing I need most right now is real combat experience. A strange scene appeared with a full moon in the middle of the forest. Dense, where should I go? The blood demon forest is crawling with ghost-type monsters. That place is too dangerous. In the dark space, there was a portal with cracks letting light shine through. Then the goblin cave. There are too many people there already. Where to? Elric looked as if he were sitting in a chair enjoying the last of the daylight. In his ears, the advice still echoed, "Listen, there are ruins scattered across the continent where our ancestors once lived. Yes, that is the place." Elric approached Murfito and said, "Let's go." Murfito looked puzzled, asking, "Go where?" As the scenery shifted to a massive snow-covered mountain, Elric walked forward with a determined gaze, saying, "We're heading to Zeti territory." In the Zeti highlands, bright sunlight poured through the canopy, illuminating a vibrant blue lake below. Elric was busy grooming himself. Revealing his true identity could be a real problem. "I have to change my appearance." A surge of water swirled up, guided by his mental magic and incantations. He stood in the center of the rushing torrent, feeling the water pour over him. After feeling this intense rush, Elric signaled a stop and cut his hair. Suddenly, half of it was gone, with jagged locks flying through the air. A clean new look emerged before his eyes. His handsome, completely different face slowly came into focus, and even his skin tone looked strange in the reflection of the lake. "Looks all right, I guess." Meanwhile, the capital was buried in the cold of a blizzard. "There's a team about to depart. You're in luck," said the guide inside the wooden room. "No one really goes to the Zeti Highlands anymore. It's quite a surprise that so many people want to head there suddenly. The team I mentioned is right over there." The door creaked open just at that moment. "Ah, they're here." Right on cue, a tiny-looking guy walked in laughing. "Looks like we've got some newcomers, eh?" Elric cast a quick glance at the group. 4 herbalists, 3 demon hunters, and 5 people concealing their energy. The young boy leading them began to introduce everyone. "I'll reintroduce myself then. In our tribe, we have a tradition of naming people based on the day they were born. My name is Manhwa, which means the second morning of the week." You might be wondering why this is useful, right? Today just happens to be the second morning of the week. In common language, that's Tuesday. So as long as you stick close to me, you'll never be in any danger. Even the Demon King Murfito was getting annoyed. This jerk talks way too much. I swear one day I'm going to rip that mouth of his wide open. Elric kept a polite smile and replied, "Ah, I see, Manhwa. Could I buy a communication crystal from you?" But the boy shook his head. "What for? Our village doesn't have any crystals. You could use something like a carrier pigeon or send a letter instead." He just kept going on and on. I suddenly remembered this super funny story that happened a while back. "It involved pigeons and letters." But suddenly a jarring voice cut in. "Bad luck, let's go." Manhwa laughed heartily and turned to walk away. "What a pity. I'll tell you on the way, let's go." Elric's face showed his distress. "She's going to be furious if I don't contact her soon. Things are getting more complicated by the minute." Still, I already told Sun. He should be able to handle this. On the way to the Zeti Highlands, Manhwa's storytelling echoed, and then the pigeon suddenly dove straight into the chimney, but before you could realize that bit of information, that chimney must have belonged to the guy who stole money from the person next to the grandma's lover. "The oldest villager around here?" The Demon King looked around, scanning the area. "I have a feeling this place is pretty familiar. This is where the Zeti live, isn't it?" Elric glanced at him full of suspicion. "You know about the Zeti. You've been here before." Murfito nodded. "Of course. They're just scum who dared to admire us." At those words, Elric's body visibly trembled. "Zeti are demons, they—" He turned back and barked. "Don't you dare compare me to that trash! They're just monsters. Who would have thought they were connected to the demon realm? It's astonishing." He kept rambling about the past. Still, their previous king was actually useful. He must have received a blessing from the demon lord, though his fate wasn't exactly fortunate. This made Elric exclaim, "The Zeti actually had a ruler in the past." Demon King Murfito closed his eyes and muttered, "His grave is probably still around here somewhere." Elric shouted in shock, "A grave? Do you know where it is?" But he just shrugged, unconcerned. "Who knows, even if it is still here? It's probably already been raided." Elric's gaze toward him became complex. If the Zeti were demons, surely their remains would have some connection to the family's 7th secret. A flood of memories about his father suddenly rushed back. The 7th secret is the ancestral hideout built to protect the legacy of this family. "Elric, when you're grown up and become the clan head, go to the Zeti Highlands first." The old man urged his son to be careful and confirm all the family inheritance at that location. Paying his respects to the ancestors, he glanced upward before bowing his head to look at the magic necklace, wondering what the family legacy could possibly be. "I wonder if I can find out more about this magic necklace if I go there." The sound of the Manhwa flower echoed throughout the entire journey. If you follow the legend passed down from generation to generation, the first Zeti tribeswoman to ever appear was abandoned by her husband and left behind on this plateau. That woman died after taking her revenge. She met Yukion, who appeared out of nowhere, and that is how the story began. Those incessant prattling words kept drilling into Morphedo's ears. He turned to scold Liz. "You're useless. Can't you use magic to stop that noise? Can you just shut your mouth? Look, my ears are bleeding already." He tried to be patient, pulling him along while struggling to keep up. "Just bear with it. What kind of ghost bleeds anyway?" He was talking about the JT creature the other guy kept mentioning. Why haven't they shown up yet? The Manhwa sound is already howling. Everyone, the road from here on out is going to be pretty rough. Before we continue our journey, we should get something to eat. The group split up to start a few small campfires, and a strange man moved toward a group of only 3. "Mind if we share the fire with you?" His intuition kicked in, looking right through the man's true intentions. He was as strong as a noble knight, and Lise observed everyone from one group to the next. But they don't seem to be targeting me. Could they be on some kind of secret mission? He also began to notice that special person. Is that guy the leader? He doesn't look like. Suddenly the person took off their hood, and it wasn't just LZ who was shocked. Those standing nearby were stunned as well. Isabao spoke softly. "Thank you. We will cherish it." A woman. The men nearby immediately flashed lecherous, twisted smiles. "Why would you hide such a pretty face? Young lady, oh my, I didn't think I'd be lucky enough to have such a wonderful experience here." When suddenly a sharp blade was unsheathed. She lunged straight at the man who had just uttered those crude words. The man moved so fast not a sound was heard until the blade touched his throat. He trembled in terror. "You have offended a lady by daring to speak like that. Pay for your sins with your life, won't you?" Isabel shouted, "Sen, stand down!" Elric, sitting to the side, was also trembling in fear. That guy dared to flirt with a noble. Does that guy even have a brain in his head? But suddenly Morphedo turned to look at him with a terrifying gaze. From afar, a massive surge of magic was rushing toward them. His eyes widened in shock as if he had seen something. It was horrific. Sen still wouldn't lower her blade, saying, "But my lady, these bastards!" She shouted, trying to stop her. "Lower your sword!" Sen reluctantly closed her eyes, gave up, and sheathed her blade when suddenly Elric stood up and shouted to the crowd, "Everyone run." Sen looked back at him confused, and the hunters were also stunned. "What?" After that, Sen pressed her hand to the back of her sword and bowed her head. From that sword, Sennen unleashed beams of light that shattered into thousands of tiny sparkling fragments. Manhwa gasped, seeing Sen act with such decisiveness that he couldn't take his eyes off her. Suddenly, a beam of light shot straight at the enemy. The silence vanished, and blood began to splatter. Sen was in a dangerous situation, sword in hand, but she still paused to warn them to protect the lady. Those around them started to tremble and grit their teeth in fear. Elzik frowned at the sight. His eyes clearly showed his absolute fury. "This reminds me of the nest." He immediately dashed forward at high speed to reach his target. Els looked up at the deep blue sky, just like when the vortex and the black cylindrical shapes fell. "Why are there so many?" Looking down from above, he stood with his feet spread wide, preparing to face the impending war. Liz's coat fluttered along with his determined eyes. This created a tension more intense than ever before. A moment later, he began to use his magical hands to block the dangerous wave ahead. Elric shouted, blocking the magic from his hands. A blinding yellow light erupted, swirling in midair. Soon after, Elric's eyes gradually drifted downward. Worried about everyone around him, he suddenly thought, how are the others doing? As for those around them, everyone had their swords in hand. Men and women alike entered the arena to battle, and everyone was hacking at the bodies of the commoners. Limbs were severed cleanly, accompanied by sounds like blades piercing through flesh, sending blood spraying everywhere, forcing the people to cry out for help. "Help me!" The blows were very powerful and ferocious, creating a rhythmic hacking sound. The eyes of Elzik and Morphedo accidentally met for a brief moment, but it was enough to make the atmosphere tense. More than ever, Elixir suddenly stood frozen. The space around him seemed to lock up, and perhaps deep down, Elixir was filled with an indescribable emotion. Morphedo flashed a villainous, sinister smile, his face growing fierce as he approached. "It's those idiots from the Blood-Eye tribe." Hearing that, Elixir suddenly sprinted with the speed of light rushing forward. He stood there thinking of a wild jungle scene where many round orange lights were flashing on the trees. He had heard that the Zeti usually travel in packs of 10. Then those orange lights suddenly grew much brighter than before, and as Elric thought of many large, terrifying beasts, he soon began to feel anxious and a little scared. He gritted his teeth in anger. This was just too much. As for Sen, he was extremely tense, shouting orders at the top of his lungs, "Wipe them out!" The monster was right in front of him, baring its teeth in a threat. No sooner had he finished speaking than those beasts launched a painful attack. The first battle was already shaping up to be a rough one, wasn't it? The friend standing next to Murphyto whispered, and Murphyto wore a wicked grin. "Starting to tremble now that it's time to fight, are you?" "Typical humans." The friend standing by yelled, "Shut your mouth!" And then Murphyto's mouth was immediately sealed with 2 pieces of tape in an X shape, rendering him unable to speak. "This isn't the time for idle chatter. I guess the Demon King is a bit mindless, huh?" Sen slumped down. Darkness enveloped his thoughts, and he had to admit they were truly astonishing. Sen's eyes lit up as he looked up, and upon doing so, he immediately envisioned the scene. Back when I was in the arena? Is this how a knight maximizes their aura? Then a sudden thought struck him. He saw Elric running fast, looking up. I want to see more, but this isn't the right time. The Zeti launching a surprise attack is a real problem. But that's not all. The scene of the wild forest mentioned earlier flashed through his mind. Another pack of Zeti is waiting for a chance to ambush us too. Everything could be in danger if we make a wrong decision right now. Rocks were being smashed into pebbles of all sizes, falling into the abyss, and yet the story will change if I take them down first. Red lightning crackled from the character's body, shedding the blue light and taking on a different power. Armed against a vast blue sky with beasts standing on both sides threatening him, it seemed his use of memory to record those enhancement spells had finally paid off. A crowd of beasts charged ferociously, clearly intending to attack. They surged forward, closing in on their target, their eyes beginning to glow intensely. Even though I'm not sure if my attack will work. Having locked onto the prey he needed, he didn't hesitate to launch a serious strike. Elric squeezed his eyes shut as if trying to chase away the frustration within him. At the very least, I can slow them down. Catching them off guard, he leaped into the air. Magic poured out of him, and an explosion erupted. Hidden deep within his eyes was the fury they had left behind. Now he finally had the chance to let it all out. He stood from afar, watching everything slowly vanish, burning away. The explosion grew larger and more violent. Shards of glass slowly and brutally impacted them. Currently, 2 remained maintaining their confidence, and staring straight at Elric. It wouldn't be easy to get rid of them. He used an even stronger measure, channeling magic directly from his own hands, wrapping it around them with great force until it finally spread throughout their bodies. The numbers were slowly starting to dwindle. Everything seemed to be falling apart. Only 2 left, huh? Then from afar, everyone watched. Where do you think you're going? He turned back full of satisfaction and amusement, having restrained them and landed safely on the ground. His knees buckled slightly. Not bad even for me, huh? Afterwards, he sat on the back of the giant beast. While we're at it, let's have a little chat. Not long after, Murphyto immediately flew over. Besides being angry and grimacing, he couldn't say anything else. Conversely, Elric smiled brightly, looking at him with a smug expression. Hey, I'm still here. Let's talk for a bit. Unable to contain his frustration, Murphyto pointed at his face and let out some nasty words. You son of a... You really need to be put in your place. Elric spoke softly, but his voice was filled with underlying aggression. It made him stop his outburst immediately. A moment later, as things calmed down, he commanded, We don't have time for this, so translate for me immediately. Upon hearing that, Murphyto was so surprised he could only say half a short sentence. What are you saying? Elric stood watching him and the Zeti chatting quite happily. Tell it that if it tells me where its tribe is, I will let it go. But he rested his chin on his hand and laughed gleefully. It says to untie it first. After hearing this, Elric questioned, What makes you think I'd trust that? Suddenly, Murphyto's expression turned serious, his eyes becoming sharp in this situation. We should negotiate through dialogue instead of threats. Seeing the 2 whispering back and forth, Elric granted the Zeti's wish. Shortly after, Murphyto slowly approached it and whispered. Seeing this, it leaned its ear toward him to listen. Murphyto whispered in a low voice, negotiating the translation, We're going to pretend to cooperate with this jerk for now. As for Elric, even though he had called out very friendly, Murphyto hadn't heard him yet. My good sir, he couldn't even finish the sentence before the beast suddenly roared as if unsatisfied. It took him by surprise, and he unleashed his power toward the monster to keep it from getting agitated. The chill from the attack still lingered on his fingertips. He let out a sigh of relief, though still quite shaky. That was close. It almost got out of hand. At this moment, Murphyto just turned his back, pretending to know nothing about what just happened, leaving the monster aside. Elric didn't hesitate to flash a threatening smile. "So let's try talking again, shall we?" The Zeti let out a terrified scream so loud it echoed throughout the vast forest. A moment later, he looked at him and said gently, "You gullible snowman. You almost died because of him, my good sir." Deep down, Elric thought, "Thanks for pointing the way, pal." He gave the cute-looking bear a two-finger salute to say goodbye, but inside he was thinking, "You all better just drop dead." In the middle of his amusement, Elric suddenly clutched his chest. His dragon heart held the magic of both dragons and demon lords, but he could only tap into 3% of its power. If he were to release all of that bizarre magical energy, his body wouldn't handle the strain and would shatter. With his current level, fighting like he used to was just too dangerous. But he couldn't back down. Elric's confidence surged. He strode forward with powerful steps. If he gave up just because of this, how could he ever rebuild his family? His eyes flicked toward the path behind him. As his thoughts drifted, he wondered, "That noble lady, I hope she's safe." Meanwhile, the scene opened with blood spraying everywhere. Sen wasn't spared as both his body and his sword were splattered, and he stared into the distance with a sigh. The three of them stood stunned for a long time amidst the carnage, until Isabel came rushing over from the distance, frantically looking around to see if anyone else was there. He started to wonder, maybe he died while trying to run off alone, or he's hiding somewhere. But when he turned his head, he answered her differently, trying to put her mind at ease. Perhaps he managed to escape safely. Isabel couldn't stop worrying, her eyes fixed on the empty space ahead. She said she was fine, but the anxiety in her gaze was impossible to hide. As for Elric, he was also staring deeply into the distance, whispering, "Please stay safe." Standing before him now were a dozen giant monsters with glowing eyes. His own gaze didn't back down, matched with an intimidating sense of confidence. "Don't look at me with such bloodlust. Take me to your leader." The monsters kept threatening him with their glares and low rumbling growls, closing in all around him. Their numbers were so great that Elric had nowhere to run. Their massive feet began to shift, and Elric, feeling flustered, looked up at the creature standing before him. It stood tall like a literal giant. Even so, Elric managed to say, "I have some questions I need answered." The only response was a confusing guttural growl. From behind his back, Elric pulled out a glowing piece of crystal. "It would be better if we didn't have to take this further." But as he looked up, he felt a flicker of fear, thinking, if this conversation doesn't work out, that is the quickest way to take down their leader. Suddenly, the beast noticed Elric's unique eyes, his green eyes. It frowned slightly and asked in a suspicious tone, "What is your name?" Elric found it strange. Elric spoke slowly. "Elric Melvin." Upon hearing this, the massive beast softened its tone and said, "Follow me." As they walked, the two of them moved slowly through the thick snow. When they arrived, it began to explain, "Our tribe has a legend." Elric instinctively asked, "What legend?" Suddenly, Elric's eyes widened. A long, long time ago, a great king ruled over this mountain. Turning around, he saw Murphyto had appeared there. No one knew when he had arrived, but the beast continued its tale with fervor, revealing a shocking truth, that King said there was only one person he ever recognized as a friend. An image appeared of the small, mysterious figure. Standing beside the massive king, a person from the past who had green-colored eyes, and that person's name was Melvin. He began to feel wary, questioning himself. My family's ancestor was friends with the king of the snow people. Elric's expression turned solemn. "Where is that house?" The creature facing him bared its fangs and pointed. Both of them looked down into the deep, dark abyss. As they gazed, everything around them seemed frozen in place. A look of pure fear washed over Elric's face, and he thought to himself, not daring to speak aloud, "There's a house beneath this cliff." The more he looked, the more his terror grew. It was insane, there really was a house down there. Suddenly, Elric noticed something else secret. His eyes widened again as he looked down, and he said, "The air currents are rising." Then the beast began to explain things in more detail to Elric. "Once every year when the winds die down, we go down there, but no one has ever been able to return." Suddenly, Murphyto appeared behind them, humming, so much magic, yet not a single bit to be gained. How is that possible?" Standing before the abyss, he remained deep in thought for a while. None of them had the skills required. Before long, Elric immediately spoke up. "Exactly. It would be incredibly reckless with my current skills. However, if I just stand here now, I won't be able to take another step. Elizabeth's slow footsteps neared the edge of the deep abyss as if the ancestors wanted to test their descendants' skills. Seeing this, the two people around Elizabeth hesitated. What are you doing? Before they knew it, he jumped into the deep abyss without a moment's hesitation. Elric should have been terrified. But on the contrary, he was incredibly happy, grinning from ear to ear. I have no choice but to answer their call. Morito, still up at the cliff, was frantic watching him jump. Is this guy insane? He just jumped like that. Meanwhile, he was annoyed by the wind. Damn wind, it's much stronger than I thought. Morito dove down after him, yelling in frustration, You lunatic, focus or you're going to die. At this moment, his legs straightened out, fully prepared. All right, one more step. He was uncomfortable, but gritted his teeth, pushing through. I can almost reach it. A voice echoed, urging him, land now. The lonely house appeared more clearly before his eyes, and a golden light began to emanate from around Elzic's feet. The light flared with every step he took. As he landed, everything around him exploded and crumbled. He radiated a dark, fearsome aura, but unexpectedly he just collapsed from exhaustion, complaining. Man, I really thought I was a goner. Elzic laughed triumphantly, acting smug. I did it. Pretty impressive, right? You have to admit it, right? Morito could only look at him, feeling helpless. Yeah. Helix tried to stand up, his eyes fixed on the house. Still, it looks so ordinary. It looks like a hut made of leaves. He trembled as he reached out to touch the door. A purple circle suddenly appeared. It seemed to be locked by ancient magic. He pondered for a moment, then ordered Morito. Try chanting some mana spells on it. Morito grumbled and cleared his throat while Elzic tried using every spell in the book, noble magic, demon king arts, hunter techniques, demonic contracts, and everything else he could think of. He fell into deep thought again. No mana. That didn't work. Something like a key. He suddenly realized as if he had found the answer. Could it be? Elzic tensely held a silver object in his hand, and after he pressed it into the purple light, the aura intensified. Then they exploded in a blinding flash. He was briefly stunned, unable to believe the door had creaked open. He muttered to himself, talk about a trick. Before Elzic's eyes lay the vast interior of the house. Dilapidated, he grabbed a book lying inside. His eyes widened as if he had discovered something. This is like finding buried treasure. I'm going crazy. Basic principles of magical theory. Oh, there's even magic from elves and beasts. Is there dark magic here too? Every kind of book was there. As Morito stood by analyzing, it seems this was the residence of a great sage. He suddenly poked his head out, puzzled. A great sage? Morito couldn't comprehend it and fell into a deep thought. He began to reflect on his family's connection with the Snow King, but then he was drawn to a different book. Elric had found a strange book, one even he didn't know the history of. He opened it and read, The mission of our family is to eradicate demons. He began to analyze and connect it to his own dreams. This is exactly like the contents I saw in my dream. Elzic read onto a page that made him freeze. What is this? This part definitely requires certain conditions. He seemed to have almost guessed the meaning of the book. The mission that heaven had entrusted to the family could be fulfilled. A green light burst from the pages. Consume mana, then consume the demon, if it can be digested correctly. As these words appeared along with questions about whether there would be a harmony of new trajectories. Then they flared intensely, surrounding his body. It seemed they had penetrated him. Eat, the demon swallow, the demon drink, the demon. The item in his hand changed along with it. The rusty silver piece transformed into a shiny, sharp, polished object. The ownerless voice still echoed, Eat, swallow, drink, the demon. His necklace shot out a massive source of power, and countless blurry images appeared alongside it. The voice still echoed, If so, all demons will be contained within you. Just like that, a new magician will emerge, the first descendant to consume a demon and break the predestination. The test of the demonic path begins now. The scene shifted to a vast grassland. Where is this? A voice was approaching him. It seems you are the descendant in a distant future promised to receive our fate. The person stepped forward, appearing behind him. Elric turned his head to look. He smiled, seemingly amused. Elric was startled, unable to process it. Who are you? Before he could finish his sentence, the man introduced himself, Otohan Melvin G. Then Erdogan introduced his role. I am the one who guides and tests the descendants, the instructor. The history of the man was also revealed. Erdogan Melvin G. who hundreds of years ago established the demonic magic system of the Melvin G family. Over the generations, only a few ancestors had brought glory to the family. Erdogan was happy to hear Elric talk about himself. "It seems you know who I am, eh?" he asked the man, which surprised the ancestor. "Could it be that you are the great sage?" Otohan was stunned and asked him about this. "None of my descendants know about this anonymity. Where did you hear that?" Elzic explains that he knows because of the Demon King Merfito and follows that up with more details. And when he notices that the guy is nowhere to be found, the old man, seemingly knowing who he is, asks, "Merfito, the Demon King of Original Sin?" And he confirms that it is indeed that foolish demon. Otohan laughs and pats him on the shoulder. "Ha ha, so the first demon race you devoured was Merfito Plus." He is delighted to have found someone talented and proposes increasing the difficulty, saying, "A truly gifted descendant has finally arrived. Should I increase the difficulty of the arrangement?" Over there, Merfito suddenly feels his ear itch and feels annoyed. "Who the hell dares to curse me? I'll chop off their limbs." Elzic, after hearing what Otohan said, still doesn't understand. "What is this arrangement you speak of?" "Are you suggesting something, sir?" He strokes his head, his voice softening. "You're curious about a lot of things, aren't you?" Otohan smiles. "You can record it at your leisure. Leave the rest for later. Why are you in such a rush to write about complicated matters?" Elzic is a bit flustered and blushes at his gentleness. "Why are you being shy?" Otohan raises his hand and summons magic power on his palm. As he speaks, he creates a magic circle in his hand. "We have prepared something similar to a source magic wheel," and the power surges out of his hand. "It shoots forward relentlessly. If it starts spinning once, it can't be stopped, so I don't just hand it over to anyone. No matter how long it takes, I must verify my descendant thoroughly." Otohan stands on the meadow. "Since you have passed my test from here on, it will be your choice." The images of their two faces merge into one, each taking up half. It seems as if they are one fused with the magic wheel. He asks Elzic about his choice to stop the magic wheel or let it spin. Today, Elzic feels as if he is bound by the wheel. "I don't know what the family's arrangement is. If I take the wrong path, my life could vanish." He clenches his fists, burning with determination. "Because of that, this is my last chance to escape." Otohan speaks with a cold expression. "Very well, I respect your choice." Finally, Elzic makes his decision. "I will rebuild the family." His expression becomes increasingly stunned, as if frozen when he hears him continue, "I will carry on the wishes of my ancestors and the great heroes." He continues to think of a vision of the future. "To build an empire so that I can leave my name on this land." Like a great mage, Elzic stands under a large stone statue and looks up. Through the light of the magic circle, his face appears full of confidence. He affirms that this is the dream he has cherished for a long time. His hand brushes across the circle, and in his hand it races forward, then collides with the ground, creating a huge explosion. Otohan's expression freezes as he witnesses what is happening before him. After seeing this display, Otohan happily pats Elzic hard, exclaiming, "Well done! Oh, this boldness! If it's our descendant, he can do it." Elzic yells out, dodging the slap, "Ouch, that hurts!" Suddenly, a vast expanse of sky along with grass and mountains appears. So, after Otohan waves his hand, a new scene appears behind him. He turns around in amazement. "What is this?" he stammers amidst the sudden chill. "Where are we?" At this moment, the old man coldly drops a line, "This is the place for the first arrangement test." In the biting cold, he grits his teeth and thinks, so it is here. "I have to undergo the test right here, don't I?" Suddenly, Elzic's expression becomes unusually excited. "If that's the case compared to now, who knows, I might become much stronger." Otohan slightly curves his lips and replies, "Are you smiling? For someone about to take a test, this mindset is very good." Saying that, he points his hand into the distance and speaks, "Then look over there." He follows Otohan's gesture with his eyes and stammers, "What do you want me to look at, sir?" The deep voice continues, urging him to look in the direction of his hand, further look deeper. Shrouded in a thick black fog, he squints. Thin black smoke is spreading, becoming thicker. The black smoke gradually mixes and covers everything. What is that? A mysterious creature appears. That is the Snow Mountain King, the ruler of the Snow Mountains where the shadows dominate the entire pack. That is the empire of the Snow Mountain King, the first and also the last person, who united the snow tribes and was also the king who ruled this snow mountain. Many streaks of black and blue energy mixed together, creating a ghostly atmosphere, but in the end it was consumed by that very ambition left behind as a fallen demon. While Elzik is still disbelieving his own eyes, Autohan presents the next challenge. This Snow Mountain King is the second demon you must devour. At this moment, sweat pours down. He trembles, pointing at the demon, and shouts, "Does that mean I have to face that thing?" Autohan calmly corrects him. It's not just facing it. Ignoring Elzik's trembling, he explains seriously, "Now you will have to devour the demon and obtain the root. Of theirs is the sigil." In surprise and disbelief, he asks softly, "The sigil? That is why every demon has their own dark thoughts. That is the nature of their class and their symbol. The heart where those dark thoughts are stored is called the sigil." The sigil of the original Sin Murphyto Plus can be seen. The strange mark on his hand has turned blue. "This is the Demon King's seal," he mutters, still in disbelief as he stares at his own hand. "From now on, you will hunt the demon clan and seize their root seals," Autohan adds, patting his shoulder. "If you can consume them," he continues, while Elric stares wide-eyed, unable to believe what he's hearing, "all their power will become yours." He is left alone, lost in thoughts of how powerful he might become. When he receives the demon's power, he coldly waves his hand and walks away. Even so, Elric still feels a bit hesitant and anxious. He needs to test it first to be sure. He vanishes in a flash, leaving behind only blue dust and the sound of movement. A warning echoes in his head, "Remember this." Merging into the blue smoke with a fierce expression, straining to unleash his power, Elric hurls himself into the dark demonic void. Having learned that the goal isn't just to defeat, but to consume, random thoughts suddenly flood his mind. Wait. Consume? What does that mean? What are you talking about? Through the thick, dark smoke, a bizarre creature appears trembling. This magic. Is it Murphyto Melvingo? Murphyto glares fiercely and speaks, "Then prove it." Autohan coldly cuts him off. "Stop causing the strange creature to tremble in disbelief." Elric lunges forward, surging with power. Our marshal's beastly gaze burns in his green eyes as he descends from above, his voice sounding chilling. "Kill them." His legs strike out, condensing into a powerful burst of demonic energy. A squadron of warriors, the guardians of the king, appears before him. They stand silently, weapons drawn. There are at least 10 of them, and they feel different from the ice creatures he's faced before. His eyes lock onto the leader. He looks ferocious, especially that one. "With my current ability, can I even win this?" Elric reveals his marked arm. "If I use just the Sin Seal combined with the Demon King's power, I think I can even take down that King of the Frozen Mountains." He is tense and anxious. "Damn it, if I don't know how to use this, it's just like drawing random scribbles." A roar of rage erupts. It seems he's ready. But this is the first test. With the Demon King's power, this isn't cheating, right? Demonic energy surges in his hand. "Let's do this." Everything explodes violently following his attack. The shockwave of the blast obliterates the area, but through the smoke and fire, sharp blades suddenly point right at his face. His eyes freeze, stunned, his pupils unmoving. What is this? Several jetty demons appear out of nowhere, flanking him and closing in. Elric doesn't flinch. He begins to cast his mental magic again, raising his arm. He strikes downward, slamming into the ground and summoning ice shards that erupt from the earth, shattering the beastly jetty demons and decapitating them in a shower of gore. Eric's keen eyes glow green, scanning the debris. All that remains of his enemies is a pile of mangled remains. "I heard you used to belong to the demon clan, but were cast aside," Eric sneers. "So you must know that when you're weak, you get thrown away." The jetty beast grinds its teeth in fury. They don't let up swarming him, but Elric isn't intimidated. "Bring it on if I can get stronger this kind of challenge." He reaches out using magic again. Elric's heart is set on the future. He will break this cycle 100 times if he has to. He pours all his focus into the battle, his spirit burning with defiance. The monsters charge wildly, but the light from his fireball is so intense it blasts them back. With such violent, fiery attacks, he thinks he's won. Amidst the fiery storm, a spiritual surge suddenly cuts through, and Elric takes the full force of the surprise attack, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He is thrown back several meters, his body swaying in midair. He's on the brink of collapse, and the jetty beast senses victory, raising its sword. It slashes toward him. "Damn it!" he curses. He hits the ground hard, gasping for air as the jetty beast looms over him. "If it stays like this, I'm going to lose." But his will is unshakable. He grinds his teeth and forces himself up. "No, I can't fall at the very first trial, even if my body can't take any more. Elric slowly stands, gathering every last bit of strength. The ground beneath him begins to shake violently, and the jetty beast stares down its opponent with terrifying eyes. Elric doesn't back down. I'll draw more energy. The monster tracks his movements, but Elric strikes first, taking the initiative. His inner eye begins to burn brighter, empowered by his dragon heart. Seizing the perfect moment, he lands a devastating strike into the creature's lower body. The creature suddenly stands still as the mental magic takes hold. Elric's gaze softens for a second, and his breathing becomes rapid, trembling. Elric drops to the cold, icy ground. He breathes a sigh of relief, his eyes fluttering open slightly. Is this for real? Behind him, the shredded remains begin to stir as dark energy flows back into them, reforming their bodies. No matter how you look at it, he thinks the first round is already this brutal. Watching the demonic energy rising from the jetty beasts, Elric starts to panic. Damn it! My heart feels like it's going to explode. The soldiers are taking form again. What do I do? Before he can collect himself, the jetty beast's energy spikes even higher. Elric, barely recovered, has to jump up panicked. The mark on his hand begins to emit a powerful aura, shielding him. Elric looks around, dazed, realizing this is a seal. He watches his hand absorbing the demonic energy. He drops down to observe. Even though it's dimmer than the primordial sin seal, a new one has definitely been created. Erohan appears, continuing to offer his counsel. So if you want to use their power, you're forced to learn their true names, though even Elric doesn't know for sure if that's really how it works. How are you supposed to find them? They certainly won't just tell you their names. Elric, console yourself, don't worry, when the time is right, you'll feel it naturally. Remembering his mentor's advice, Elric closed his eyes to focus. Amidst the swirling current of energy, he closed his eyes and sensed the world with his mind's eye. The snow monster's true name is Cruelty, though I can't explain why. I only know how to use the seal. Amidst the blizzard still blanketing the high mountain peaks at the very center, Elric stood tall against the monsters, wondering what their true name was. It seemed he had the answer in the palm of his hand. He muttered before starting the next battle, "May you be cold and heartless." Ice blue light began to swirl. Preparing to strike the finishing blow with chilling power, the monsters stood packed together, sensing the cold light aiming at them, their eyes looking blank and confused. With no time to resist, the energy lit up the entire sky. Now Elric stood unsteadily, shivering. He had used a bit too much energy, but a satisfied smile remained on his lips. However, he looked around and couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this the power of the seal?" A mark appeared all around him, and he was the one standing right in the middle of it. A cackling laugh reached Elizabeth's ears again, full of malice and terror. "Now only you remain." The very next second, he was struck down, rolling onto the ground. His eyes slowly closed, leaving his mind in a tangled mess. Why did that desperate scream ring out? He jolted awake, clutching his throat with both hands. Drool dripped from his mouth, sweat poured off him, and he gasped for air. Elric lay collapsed on the floor of a room amidst piles of scattered books. His eyes widened, his expression fearful and voice full of doubt. What just happened? Merfido suddenly appeared beside him, arms crossed, teasing. "Looks like you just went through a pretty rough trial." He looked up in surprise. Merfido ignored him, looking elsewhere with a regretful tone. "I had hoped the quest would be triggered. Since you fell asleep? When your pendant started glowing, looks like it isn't that easy." Elric bowed his head, realizing internally, "Oh, a quest. So I didn't actually die." He touched the Demon King's mark on the back of his hand. "I was too quick to trust the seal. I must have passed out after absorbing all that mana." In his mind, he recalled the scene of facing the swarm of monsters alone, but its power was far greater than he had imagined. Elric stroked the Demon King's mark, lost in thought, wondering just how powerful the seal of original sin truly was. Merfido's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Could that be the seal of cruelty? His brows furrowed, his expression complex. It seems the sage of the winter solstice cooked up a pretty strange scheme. Elric sat cross-legged on the floor. "Merfido, how do I use the seal of cruelty?" Hearing that Merfido countered, "I suppose he told you my true name," he smirked mockingly. "Do you really think I'd tell you that?" Merfido's dark gaze shifted over his tone heavy as he declared, "No matter how you insult me, you will never get anything from me." With that, he turned away. Elric reached back and rubbed his neck, looking calm. "I was just asking, no need to be so prickly." He told himself, I knew he'd say that. After all, seals are the most important things to demons. Elric looked at Murphyto's back and silently decided not to mess with Murphyto's demon seal. He gently pulled his sleeve over his other hand to hide the back of it. Elric spread his palm toward Murphyto, his expression brightening. "Murphyto, you said you know the Snow Mountain King, right?" Murphyto turned his head, his face showing reluctance. "Why are you asking me about that all of a sudden?" Hearing that, he immediately replied, "This place is his tomb, and it looks like I have to catch him." Murphyto's tone went from confused to increasingly agitated. The questions kept pouring out his face, full of shock. Otto Hanmeo Vinger, I know you're crazy, but he dares to order someone like you to catch an entity I acknowledge." At this moment, Elric leaned in close, his face full of cunning, watching Murphyto, who was panicking and sweating profusely. "So about that, do you know anyway?" Murphyto swiped his hand aside to keep his distance, flatly refusing, "No." Elric didn't give up, spreading his arms and moving closer. "Come on, he doesn't even belong to the nobility anymore. At the very least, you could tell me that much, right?" He immediately flew into a rage, veins popping on his face as he roared, "What are you talking about?" Revealing the secrets of a seal includes the secrets and weaknesses of their entire race. You know that... Elric ignored his words, holding up 3 fingers and cutting him off. 3 days of no pranks. He squeezed his eyes shut, his voice still harsh. "Do you think you can break my pride like that?" Elric held up 5 fingers, continuing to negotiate 5 days. Murphyto gritted his teeth. "You're still looking down on me." Hearing that, Elric immediately gave up. Fine, forget it. He immediately lowered his voice, gesturing forward with a wry, condescending smile. "But since my generosity is as vast as the sea, I'll let it slide this time." Elric sighed in relief. "Just for 5 days of no pranks, haha." Murphyto coughed awkwardly to hide his embarrassment. Immediately after, he became serious. "Listen closely. With the seal you have in your hand right now, forget about completing the quest. You won't even be able to get near the Snow Mountain King." Elric's expression fell. "What do you mean?" Murphyto crossed his arms. However, he flashed a wicked smile. "It doesn't mean there's no way." The scenery changed. A blizzard filled the sky, and Elric stood tall on the ice in the freezing weather. "Ugh, it's freezing my butt off," he grumbled. "This is exactly why I didn't want to come back." As the Snow Mountain King emerged, shrouded in waves of dark energy and glowing with crimson eyes, he sighed. "Looks like I'll have to use that hint Murphyto mentioned." Remembering what Murphyto told him, Elric vanished from his spot in a flash, leaving only a cloud of dust behind as he lunged straight toward the Snow Mountain King. The beast sat at the center, surrounded by dark, shadowy specters with glowing red eyes. Murphyto's warning echoed in his mind, "You need to increase your achievement level." Seals are categorized by rarity, common, advanced, precious, unique, and legendary, but there's also something called an achievement level. It can lead to different power tiers even within the same rank. Elric moved with incredible agility, weaving through the charging shadows. 2 snowmen closed in. One swung a fist, while the other brandished a spear. Meanwhile, the Snow Mountain King's seal had already reached 10 stars. Just then, one side of the snowman's face shattered into pieces upon impact. Murphyto's voice still rang in his ears. "So you are forced to raise your achievement level to 10 stars? Or rank yourself up to unique?" A smirk spread across Elric's face. "My achievement level is only at 1 star. Adrenaline surged through him. He threw a punch forward, the Demon King's seal on the back of his hand, glowing bright blue, unleashing a powerful wave of energy around him. A blinding light flared up. Snow fell incessantly as Elric stood his ground on the white landscape, knees bent and feet planted deep into the drift. His tone turned excited as he faced the dark silhouette. "We finally meet Snow Mountain King." The shadow's form was indistinct. Dark energy emanated from it. He thought to himself, "No matter how many warriors I've defeated, my achievement level has been stuck at 2 stars. In other words, I have to face you to level up, right?" The dark mist gradually dissipated, revealing the massive form of the Snow Mountain King. Elric froze his heart, screaming in panic, wondering what this monster looked like when it was alive. What kind of creature is this demon? He recalled the gentle expression of Otohan smiling and comforting him. "It's all right, you won't die." Elric broke into a sweat, his face full of disbelief. "He wants me to defeat that thing. Is he really our family's noble ancestor? He's not our mortal enemy, is he?" The snow kept falling in the silent space, punctuated only by strange, echoing sounds. He stood tall, arms hanging at his sides, steeling his resolve. Still, I'll give it a shot. His hair fell over his eyes, hiding his expression. Elric began to psych himself up. This is gonna be tough. But if I keep trying... He looked up, swinging his arm forward with a confident grin. I can definitely win. The scenery shifted. Mufito looked down with a suspicious expression. Elric's eyes widened, looking back blankly. He was sprawled out on the ground, limbs splayed, laughing awkwardly. Ha ha ha. Elric placed a hand on his chest, sighing in frustration. It's all talk when I'm trying, but when I actually fight someone strong, I die before I can even move. Mufito hovered in the air, arms crossed, leaning in to advise him. Do you get it now? Just give up on that mission. He didn't hold back, cutting him off. Still, if I can acquire that entity's seal... Elric suddenly sat up, eyes gleaming with a cunning smile that made Mufito shiver. That bastard is doing it again. He sat up straight, raised a finger, and suddenly asked, Oh, right, this is a bit sudden. The Snow Mountain King is a woman, right? Elric stared at Mufito with a skeptical look. The spirit fell into a thoughtful silence, saying nothing. Mufito felt like something was off. He suddenly looked up. Humph! Seeing Elric's teasing expression, he grew angry, his face turning red as he shouted, Why are you looking at me like that? Your eyes, what's with those eyes of yours, you jerk? Elric watched with amusement as Mufito tried to act angry to hide his embarrassment. I see now, he thought to himself. There's something going on between the Snow Mountain King and Mufito. Well, I'll figure it out eventually. Elric gripped the flower-shaped badge tightly in his palm. Right now, the most important thing was to devour the Snow Mountain King. He carefully adjusted his stance, letting the badge hover between his palms. Even though he didn't quite know how yet, a light flashed. His eyes widened with determination. I'll find a way. If I beat the guts out of him, then... Elric lunged forward, shouting, Die! He sprinted toward a massive frozen rock, his body plunging down without stopping. Suddenly, Elric's eyes widened in sheer panic. He crashed hard, curling up in a pool of blood. It hurts. My head feels like it's going to explode, even though he was in agony. Elric kept trying to fight, stammering, But... Then he poured all his strength into his fist to strike the giant ice block ahead. Finally, he unleashed a powerful blow. The demon's face slowly revealed itself from behind the ice. Elric felt a rush of joy. I'm getting closer bit by bit. Finally, I can see her face. It glared at him with the ferocious expression, roaring its red eyes, looking as if they wanted to tear Elric apart. Elric wasn't about to lose. In fact, he looked even scarier. Now I see you. So that's how you use the Snow Mountain King's wicked seal. The demon's massive hand rose to unleash an attack. Elric stared the demon down, raising his own hand to counter. Finally, their hands collided. Elric's hand looked tiny compared to the demon's. Magic radiated from the Snow Mountain King's hand as they met. Blue electric sparks flashed across his hands. Even if he had to steal everything from her a moment later, the magic from her hands began to take effect. With immense force, it sent him flying backward. Otohan, standing above, seemed to have witnessed the whole thing. He looked into the distance, perhaps feeling a bit disappointed. He thought about how his ego would collapse if he just fought blindly like that. He assumed Elric had weakened, but looking at him now, he was taken by surprise, because Elric was wearing a bizarre smile. Otohan suddenly had a unique thought cross his mind, saying, That's right, that child. Watching the scene as Elric put his all into a powerful kick, he muttered, You will never appear, not even in our family. The demon's arm was severed after Elric's kick. A blue light enveloped the entire space. Elric smirked sinisterly as if victory were already in his grasp. Even a madman needs a moment to rest. He started laughing without focusing on his opponent. I've reached 3 stars. Returning to the main task, Elric's eyes widened, staring at the blade right before his face. The demon unleashed an attack while Elric was distracted. Elric grimaced, bracing for the powerful blow. As he blocked it, he couldn't help but curse under his breath from exhaustion. Meanwhile, the demon's sword slowly dropped mid-air. Then the demon's sharp blade lunged straight at him. Instinctively, he used his power to block that strike. But the demon's power was so overwhelming that it stunned him. He gritted his teeth, enduring the attack, wondering, Is this truly my limit? Elizabeth looked at the savage demon before her, calculating how to defeat the Snow Mountain King. I must understand her, she thought, gritting her teeth in pain. No, I must... Then Elizabeth faltered. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. As she faced her, the seal on his hand began to glow, and a blinding light erupted from its center. But the demon didn't give him time to unleash his power, striking a blow that brought him to his knees. Suddenly, Murphyto appeared in the air amidst the blood-red space. Seeing his arrogant expression, Elric could only wonder why he was there. He looked down at Elric, who was exhausted from the previous battle. He said softly, "Prove that you are worthy of becoming a part of our race, Snow Mountain King." Elric's mind was filled with confusion and questions. "Am I the Snow Mountain King?" The blue seal on his arm glowed softly again, then erupted with a dazzling light from its center. In another turn of events, a figure with a rugged appearance and a face like a skull appeared, blurring, then becoming clearer. What on earth was happening? In the distance, a figure waved before kneeling down. "The demon god has granted us a prophet," they continued, addressing their leader. "Our queen leader of the highlands," who was cradling a small bear in her palm, then shouted with confidence and courage, "These mountains will be ours." The Snow Mountain King in his younger form recounted, "I was born a king who will rule the snowy peaks." Hearing this, Elizabeth witnessed this and wondered, "Is this the Snow Mountain King's past?" But he continued, "I am the first in the history of the Snow Mountains to unite the tribes. I cannot be satisfied with just the Snow Mountains." A pair of bright red eyes flashed. At that moment, the figure of the Snow Mountain King stood alone on the mountain watching the snow fall. "I must reclaim our former glory," the two high-ranking leaders said. "Listen to me, because we were once part of the omnipotent demon clan." He held his own weapon in his hand. "Once again, we will return to our rightful place." His sword was swung out across the snowy peaks. "We have made countless humans and demons crawl before us." The slash cut through everything. Blood splattered everywhere. A terrifyingly blood-red sky appeared. "And finally, we will become part of the demon clan again." The Snow Mountain King's eyes glowed with fierce intensity. "And more than that, I have tried to become a demon king." Countless bodies lay strewn on the ground. However, the image of the Snow Mountain King kneeling on the ground contrasted with Murphyto standing high above, looking majestic. Looking closer, one could see his annoying, smug smile. Murphyto grabbed the Snow Mountain King's chin and laughed triumphantly. "The wall of the omnipotent demon king is too high, and I can only taste the bitterness of defeat." His tone was filled with disappointment. "However, I never stop, and I have done everything just to polish my true name and strengthen my seal." Dark and gloomy shadows engulfed him. "I have taken the first step." A pair of red eyes glowed brightly. "Just a little more, and I can receive Murphyto's recognition." But someone was floating in the gloomy air. A woman and a brawny man stared far away. Staring fixedly, he was blocked by the figures of two imposing people, showing that they were the walls blocking the Snow Mountain King's desires. Finally, the image of Otohan appeared. With serious green eyes, perhaps it was the steepest wall the demon had to face. Terror emanated from the bear's glowing red eyes emerging from the dark sky. All the energy shot out like a boiling stream of blood, inciting the Snow Mountain King. To everyone's astonishment, a body began to vanish. A flash of resentment and frustration flickered in his eyes. "What is this?" Fast as lightning, a knight lunged forward, swinging a powerful, decisive blow, creating a massive explosion that sent everything flying. Hidden in those eyes was coldness, ignoring all the screams around him. "Save me! I don't want to die!" The warriors protecting the king were stunned by what stood before them, a strange creature. It loomed large amidst everyone's frantic screams. "I want to live!" A huge explosion just occurred, as if something had just plummeted from the sky to the ground. Everyone covered their bodies. Avoiding the debris as the explosion occurred, an axe with a wooden handle and intricately carved patterns appeared. The axe was gripped by the Snow Mountain King. It radiated black smoke covering its entire body, creating an aura that made no one want to come near. "Calm down!" Her roar of fury erupted. "We belong to the proud demon clan. There is nothing we cannot accomplish. For the enemies blocking my path, witness our horror." Blood splattered everywhere, covering even Murphyto's still shocked face. Then a series of chaotic scenes followed. A single swing of the axe nearly wiped out all opponents in an instant, causing blood to spray everywhere. His eyebrows knitted slightly. The image of Otohan appeared with his hand outstretched, as if trying to reach for something. Otohan was surprised. The image of the Snow Mountain King in the past sat amidst a large fire as if defeated. Han appeared with his hand outstretched as if reaching for something. In a flash, he saw a vision of the Snow Mountain King from the past sitting amidst a massive inferno looking utterly defeated. We lost the war against the humans led by him and were driven back to the Snow Mountain. Why now, of all times? The echoes of self-reproach still rang in her mind. Why? Atahan looked at her with a look of regret, letting out all his frustration. You humans, you've already taken everything you wanted. Do you mean to say you won't allow us to have even one thing? She gritted her teeth, staring ahead. Glowing blue patterns emerged on her exposed arm, and black energy radiated from her body, surging outward with immense power. On the other side, Elric stood firm, unfazed by the Snow Mountain Queen's transformation. His eyes narrowed slightly, gazing into the distance as if lost in thought. This is your mission. Elric stood alone, deep in thought, as if transported to another realm. Even in your despair, you endure. The memories shifted back to when he was just a child taking his first unsteady steps. The black aura continued to swirl around the Snow Mountain Queen. Countless hardships to reclaim the glory of your people. Elzic touched the woman's face and both began to weep. A grand mission. Snow began to fall, and after that day, Atahan stayed on the Snow Mountain to watch over the queen. After countless battles, the two gradually came to respect one another and lived together for quite some time. Though hatred clouded her judgment, even so, I must reclaim our former glory. An undeniable truth, she could never fully escape the temptation of her own ambitions. In the end, he had become a monster. He retreated into the shadows. Atahan stood there solemnly, his cold, hardened face hidden behind his glasses, having perished by his own hand. Elric's hair fell slightly, partially obscuring his face, but it could not hide the cold expression in his eyes. His pupils suddenly constricted as a voice rang out. You must be a descendant from the far future. Elric struggled to rise, only to be met with cold, emotionless words. That's what he had said. The Snow Mountain Queen was severely wounded, losing an arm. Yet she couldn't help but smirk. To see you destroy a portion of my mana and sever my arm. It seems he wasn't boasting. She spoke in response to Elric's clumsy apology. She suddenly paused and chuckled. I apologize for your arm. With heavy, ragged breaths, strange black smoke emanated from the queen's arm. To Elzic's astonishment, she spoke slowly. Even though I have ended up like this, because I could not abandon my ambition. I am a queen and a commander of a race. I do not need any pity from an enemy. At this moment, Elzic's eyes widened, looking ahead. With a stunned expression, unable to believe his eyes, the Snow Mountain Queen wore a cold smile, the black smoke enveloping her and creating an oppressive aura. It seems it is time to end this drawn-out battle, so that I may apologize to my people and honor their sacrifices. Why was I so greedy to join the demon clan, just being happy with those I love? It would have been enough. The Snow Queen's entire body was submerged in dark ambition, blending with the blizzard. Enveloped in thick smoke, Elric couldn't help but whisper to himself. In the end, she had been consumed by demonic energy. His expression was strained. What should he do now? The queen's body suddenly erupted with flames of rage. He steadied himself. Don't lose your focus. His opponent was the Snow Mountain Queen. Facing her as she drowned in a storm of fury, Elzic stood calmly against the monarch who had united this massive mountain. She was the greatest warrior of the Snow People and the enemy he had to consume. If he didn't use his full strength to defeat her, it would be a sign of disrespect. His entire body was gradually covered by that light. With the striking seal on his hand, I will show you the grand mission. His seal manifested countless invisible blades to strike her down. He stomped his feet fiercely into the ground. In a fighting stance, Elzic splayed his other leg, taking a wide driving step. Elric poured all his strength into the clash. The two auras collided, ready to decide the outcome of a fierce, grueling battle. He lunged their energies, slamming into each other. It created a massive explosion, sending blue light flying in one direction, while the red light surged the other way. The blue light tore through space. Plasma erupted like a fountain from the queen's body. After that collision, the Snow Mountain Queen's strange, ornate axe appeared once more. Elric drew his own familiar axe. With weapons in hand, the two began a new round of combat. He gritted his teeth, struggling to continue the fight. Moving like her, Elric prepared to spring off the ground. Two streaks of red light flashed to one side, while two beams of blue light cut through the air. The queen drifted through the air. Elric began to utilize his agility, flashing by in a blur. His footsteps hissed against the snow. The queen's eyes slowly turned red. Elzic's eyes also revealed a strong, steadfast resolve. Both were unleashing attacks on the other. How strange. Feet touching the ground, this is clearly a fight for survival. Another foot landed. Despite being thrown back as soon as their feet hit the earth, both lunged at each other again. Both faces were filled with iron will. Determination to win. Not giving the opponent a chance to turn the tables, but why does this feel so exhilarating? On this side, the surface of the mountain glowed with red light. Suddenly, a massive explosion tore the mountain apart, sending debris flying everywhere. Blue beams of light appeared in the fissures of the mountain signs of abundant energy. The massive peaks crumbled into rubble. He could feel the stones constantly shattering as the power flowed, lifting them into the air. The more he fought, the more exhilarated he became. He could feel it. In the moments of intense combat with her, he thought of the past the queen had shared with Ottohan. After a long struggle, both knew the other was reaching their limit. We have both reached our limits. White smoke erupted into the air. The battle would be decided not a single second to rest. Both of them made their final move, deciding the outcome with this last strike. The two closed in on each other, preparing to unleash a lethal blow with the very technique that had brought countless races to their knees. Their eyes blazed red, and one hand locked into a combat stance, ready to attack. The Snow Mountain King's secret technique was just as intense. Her blue eyes flashed with a sharp, piercing light. As her hands, one large, one small, collided, a massive explosion erupted, shrouding everything in a dense black cloud of smoke. Emerging from the smoke, the two figures were still locked in a fierce battle. A blizzard descended upon the battlefield, and Elzic watched the scene before him, stunned. The opponent's entire body was pitch black and motionless. Though the Snow Mountain King's body had been pierced through, she couldn't help but let out an eerie laugh, ha-ha, even as her feet remained firmly planted on the ground. But her body had been punctured and twisted. Finally, Elzic began to tremble. He gritted his teeth, his pupils contracting at her words. "Thank you." At that moment, her true face was revealed, a woman with tears still lingering in her eyes, showing a look of happiness as the land finally found peace. After the intense battle, the woman suddenly collapsed to her knees. Gentle sunlight pierced through the clouds, illuminating everything. Within the sunlight, she wore a faint smile. And there stood the shadows of the two people. That smile bloomed even more contentedly on her lips before her body gradually faded away. Elzic stood there silent. With his coat fluttering in the wind, his hand hung loosely by his side. On the ground, a green shoot began to sprout, a flower slowly blossoming, until finally it bloomed on that barren land. Rest in peace. So my first mission has come to an end. Just then, Ottohan clapped his hands happily, congratulating Elix. You actually managed to devour the Snow Mountain King, didn't you? Amazing. But Elix sighed, unable to hide his exhaustion. This first test, it felt way too hard right from the start, didn't it? He immediately refuted that, making Elix angry. Our family is invincible. If you can't even overcome something like this, then you can't call yourself a Melvin Go. Ottohan's face turned serious as he praised him. That's why Sun calls the Melvin Go family a bunch of arrogant snobs. He praised his incredible talent, but added, Honestly, I'm genuinely surprised. Even with your talent, I thought it would take you at least 1 to 3 years. But a kid who's only been learning magic for a few years managed to defeat the Snow Mountain King in just 1 month. Elzic couldn't believe it even with his confident tone. You said it yourself, 1 month. Because of that, his tone turned colder. Yeah, 1 month. Elzic tried to explain, starting to recall the specific timeline. No, I've only been learning magic for 1 month. Wait, maybe it was about 1 or 2 months. It was as if he was teasing him. Ottohan burst into loud, amused laughter. Ha ha ha! What a lousy joke! Seeing him look helpless, Ottohan didn't say anything, but looking genuinely worried, he asked, Is this not just some arrogant Melvin Go-style joke? The face Elzic made trying to smile and comfort himself was met with a response. Ha ha ha! My judge of character is truly excellent, isn't it? You just said that, didn't you? I'm repeating exactly what I said, even with your talent. Even while laughing, he lunged in and hugged him tight. You little brat! Ha ha ha! It hurts, it hurts! Your beard, watch your beard! The two of them were comfortably enjoying the scenery, sharing those final moments. How was she? Although a bit hesitant, he recounted the story. She smiled, hearing that he was happy to receive such a satisfying answer. I'm so glad. It was finally time for them to say goodbye. Thank you for everything, sir. Yeah, take care on your way back. And then Elzic worried about something else. I don't think I'll be able to visit often. Otowan acted very understanding. I understand. After all, the position of the family head is extremely busy. As he walked away, he gently said, All right, then, take care. But then he unexpectedly turned back, confusing Otowan. Still, Elzik couldn't hide his awkwardness. Oh, by the way, how do I get out of here? That surprised Otowan. You've been out countless times already, don't you remember? Ah, right. At that moment, a circle of light appeared, seemingly cutting across his face. Returning to where he started, he was still a bit shocked. Then Elzik clutched his face, cursing loudly in frustration. Damn it all! So much for honorable ancestors. My face. My beautiful face. Seeing that, Morphedo immediately mocked him. Ah ha ha ha! It looks like that crazy guy Otowan killed you, didn't he? Who kills someone without saying a single word like that? Then he remembered the main thing he needed to do. So did you manage to devour the Snow Mountain King? After hearing that, he pulled back his sleeve, revealing his arm. Yeah, just finished it. Morphedo laughed triumphantly arrogant about himself, and Elzik went along with it, praising him to the skies. It's all thanks to my help, right? Yes, yes, our great Demon King is #1. This guy really loves to flip white and black, doesn't he? Morphedo grew serious, assessing and commenting on him. Hardly. I only told him a few things, and this guy has already surpassed the level of a genius. He really is a monster. But Elzik was curious about something concerning him and the Snow Mountain King. Hey, I'm curious about one more thing. Didn't you have a rather special relationship with the Snow Mountain King? Why didn't you let her continue being a demon? Morphedo began to look afraid, stuttering, while Elzik remained excited. You at the very end. I took a peek at the Snow Mountain King's memories. Why did you do that? After hesitating, he told him the reason. Memories flashed back to the scene of him sitting on a pile of bones. I am the Demon King, and she was nothing more than low-tier demon trash, nothing more and nothing less. After some hesitation, he finally told him why the memory had surfaced. He saw himself sitting on a pile of bones and realized she was nothing more than a lowlife in the demon hierarchy, nothing more, nothing less. Back then, I was just feeling a bit bored on the snowy peak. That was how Morphedo looked down, and I heard the Snow Mountain King's voice saying that she would definitely become a demon. So I went down to see what kind of person she was. With a mocking look, he tilted the Snow Mountain King's chin. Sure, if she wanted to be a demon, she was actually missing a few things. But her ambition and skills were commendable. He began to grow arrogant, thinking that if she hadn't met a truly good and righteous king like me, but instead someone like Azazel or Lilith, she would have been crushed into dust by now. On that blood-red land, Morphedo turned his back on the Snow Mountain King. I told her to come find me again only when she got stronger, and then just left her there. Hearing the story, Elzik was shocked, not expecting the connection between the two of them to be so brief. That's why he snapped, That's it! You're never going to see her again! Why on earth would I see her again? Suddenly, a majestic scene appeared surrounded by snowy mountains, with a tall figure looming. Then Morphedo was shown grinning excitedly, axe in hand, facing Orohan. On a massive ice block, an obscure mark appeared, while Morphedo kept a gentle, excited smile for some reason. His face remained cold and sharp. Elzik clapped his hands as if discovering something interesting, looking surprised. Oh, I get it now. You get it now? Elzik mocked with an arrogant, confident air. Do you know how little brats bully the girls they have a crush on? He was fuming, trying to explain little brats a crush. The two of them were just arguing back and forth, neither would give in. That's why after 1,000 years, you're still like that. You jerk. How dare you mock me? Since they couldn't win the argument, Elzik cursed at Morphedo, and they started fighting again. Morphedo, you idiot, just drop dead. The scene shifted to someone's arm emitting white mist. It turned out to be Orohan watching the two of them from afar. He really is an interesting junior. And then, his face dropped as if suppressing a deep sorrow. Do you think so? He closed his eyes, lost in thought about someone. Are you not angry with me? Orohan then denied it, himself answering his own narration, no. The sight of the Snow Mountain King kneeling on the ground, clutching something small, reminded him of the scene where he himself was surrounded by even more horrific carnage with corpses lying everywhere. Orohan slowly called out, Snow Mountain King. She was seething with killing intent, wailing in desperation as she collapsed, reaching out to Orohan, pleading, Orohan, please! Begging him to do something unexpected, please, Zeta. His figure flickered in the black mist. I'm sorry. Orohan's hands were summoning a strange red magic. and it seemed like everything had come to an end. As his hands closed, Orohan's eyes remained fixed. It seemed he had come to terms with what happened. Orohan regained his composure, slowly opening his eyes, and whispered, "Thank you." He stood on the gentle grass, offering those final words, and broke into tears as he walked away. "I leave your regrets and responsibilities to that child. Rest in peace. I'll see you in the next life." The evening sky was calm, but carried a tinge of sadness. "I hope things will be better than they are now." Merfido floated in mid-air, arms crossed, looking curious. "What are you rummaging through?" Elzik sat on the floor, staring intently at a book. "I need to find something." He looked at the towering stacks of books behind him. "Find what? Just what exactly has made you turn this whole library upside down?" Elzik reached into his cloak to pull out something. Merfido's tone was suspicious. "Wait, is that—" In his hand, he held a blue egg only about 2 fingers wide. A flashback played. Orohan stood before him, instructing him to take this ice crystal and go find the god. Kamael. He held the blue egg-shaped crystal. "What did you just say?" "Give it to Kamael. You mean the camellia." He replied nonchalantly, "That's right. That person will become your new guide." Elric reached back, rubbing the nape of his neck, bowing his head to look at the glowing crystal. "Is this a mission?" Orohan kept his voice calm. "That's right." He held the crystal up to eye level. "How long will this take to finish?" "My back is going to give out. I'm going to end up hunchbacked at this rate." Otauhan's brows knit together, a faint trace of sorrow in his eyes. "Only when you reach the level of our predecessors." Elric's pupils dilated, his expression flickering with shock. "Predecessors?" Otauhan stood facing him. "You will have many questions, and there will be those to answer them. The predecessors are truly magnificent." Under the clear blue sky, his words of comfort echoed. "We have opened the path for you to reach him." Reluctantly, Elric tucked the crystal inside his cloak. "Fine, then. I just want to ensure you keep this egg with you." Otauhan remained calm. "I apologize for placing such a dangerous burden on your shoulders, but this is a path only you can walk." Otauhan's silhouette was resolute. "Go now." An air of calm authority radiated from him. "Go and complete the winter." Back in reality, Elric held the crystal up to inspect it. "Well, I was told to bring this ice crystal to the god of Comiola." Merfido couldn't hold back, covering his face as he burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha ha!" His expression then turned grim. "The god of Comiola? I suspect he's trying to create winter," Elric wondered aloud. "Winter? Do you have any idea what that means?" Merfido turned away. Obviously, those repulsive 4 seasons. His brows furrowed. "Have haunted demon kings like me." Elric looked at him, anxious, and hurriedly stood up to plead, "Please tell me the details." Merfido crossed his arms pridefully, turning his head away. "Why should I tell you right now?" Elric tensed up, holding up 4 fingers to negotiate. 4 days off, okay?" he retorted without a hint of mercy. "Do you think those 4 days off will do anything?" Elric gritted his teeth, then reluctantly waved his hand. "Fine, fine. How about lifting the silence curse, then?" "No more than that." Merfido gave a smug smile. "Heh heh, good. Listen closely. There were 4 subordinates who supported our predecessors in laying the foundation of Melvingo. Each had a distinct appearance. Spring wore a cloak that only revealed their eyes. Their gender was unclear. Summer looked like a young man holding a medicine bag. Autumn was a middle-aged man with shoulder-length hair and a beard. Winter was a man with a cold, chilling aura. He only wore a monocle on one eye, Merfido explained. Because their personalities and traits matched their respective seasons, we demons often call them the 4 seasons. A man with a chilling aura hovered in the middle of a blizzard. "One of them, Otauhan, corresponds to winter." Merfido hesitated. "In any case, the truth is someone has to stay behind to guide such missions." He calmly continued, facing Elric's tense expression. "That means he is trying to pass on the power he possesses to you." Elric fell into deep thought. "If I complete this, I might be able to take on missions from the 4 seasons." He thought of the mysterious currents of power and the Owl Book. "With this power I will obtain the strength of the predecessors." The image of the Demon King's sigil surfaced in his mind. "If I can consume it, then perhaps—" The corner of Elric's mouth curled up. "There is a very high chance I can rebuild my clan." Holding the crystal in his hand, Elric asked, So what makes this ice crystal so important to the cat god? What could possibly make him need it this badly? Morphedo grew contemplative. The ice crystal, the colossal glaciers, the ceaseless falling snow. Morphedo slowly explained, it's the very core of winter formed only in the deepest depths of the lands forever buried in ice. In other words, it's an egg. A blinding radiant light erupted from the crystal. Since camellias are winter-blooming flowers, no other pot could be better suited than this ice crystal. Elric looked skeptical. Then where must we go to find this cat god? Morphedo squinted one eye. Perhaps at the flower temple. It's somewhere in the south. Elric's face filled with shock, unable to hide his astonishment. The flower temple, I've only ever heard of that in legends. But it actually exists. Morphedo kept his tone calm. Indeed, that noisy bastard must be guarding the temple. Elric fell deep into thought. From this moment on, I can guarantee that. After checking the records in the royal library, Elric suddenly stopped. But wait, isn't he being a bit too friendly? What kind of scheme is he cooking up this time? A dark, gloomy aura began to radiate from Morphedo's body. His soul form seemed to be growing stronger. Elric stared at him intently, noticing that Morphedo's expression had turned strange. It seems he's noticed that a bit of his power has returned. However, even if you notice my power, there's nothing you can do. Elric's mind felt like it was sinking into a vast, empty void. You have no other choice, other than completing missions to become stronger. Elric bowed his head, lost in thought. Complete missions to become stronger. But at the same time, they could also make Morphedo stronger. Elric imagined the scene: Morphedo spreading his arms, flying through a sky that looked like a sea of blood, powerful dark energies descending upon the earth. I could obtain a great demon king, one capable of plunging this entire world into misery. Morphedo saw Elric's body tremble slightly and found it incredibly amusing. What a look of pure agony. You must be afraid. Of course you should be afraid. In his heart, Elric grumbled. He felt annoyed at having to leave a map just to become stronger, but there was no other way. My recovery process must be the priority. Morphedo suddenly cut off his train of thought, glancing up with suspicion. Elric was still bowing his head, but a smile blossomed on his face. Morphedo was stunned. That bastard? Is he smiling? Elric was incredibly excited by his own discovery. Then that means I might even be able to absorb Morphedo's power. After all, if I let him recover his strength and escape from me, then I need to become stronger. Morphedo's body couldn't help but tremble. What is wrong with that son of a bitch? Could it be that he's gone from scared to completely insane? The two turned their backs to each other. Elric wore a sly, calculating grin. I'm becoming insane. Just stop thinking about it for now. He spoke up, breaking the silence. That's enough. Once we've finished everything we need to do, should we come back here? Through the dark night, streaks of light flashed by with increasing speed, moving so fast they were barely recognizable. Elric smiled faintly. He emerged from the void and landed on the ground. Coming back in a month is as easy as pie. Morphedo floated beside him, mocking, You really are too arrogant. A cloud of dust kicked up, swirling with shards of broken wood. Now that I have a guide, should we head straight to the Red-Eye tribe? Elric smiled confidently, thinking to himself that despite everything, he still wanted to see them. A moment later, his expression darkened, his eyes staring straight ahead. The scene before him was desolate. Wooden houses lay collapsed and shattered with blood splattered all over the white snow. Elric couldn't believe it. What the? Bloody arms lay motionless on the cold ice, the remains of a fierce battle. The houses were completely destroyed. What on earth happened here? A corpse lay face up, pierced by countless sharp metal stakes. Morphedo analyzed. It looks like they were killed slowly, even though they could have been killed instantly. So they were definitely used for entertainment. His face hardened, his voice turning cold. I don't know who the culprit is, but they have a nature much more cruel than most demons. Elric's back looked lonely, his voice choking up. I feel sick to my stomach. He lifted his feet and stepped forward. Because the snow people are monsters, they can die at any time, even if I've killed so many snow people. Elric gritted his teeth, his face trembling with rage. I will never view them as toys. This sickening feeling. Is it because I swallowed the mission of the Snow Mountain King? He exhaled, trying to regain his composure. Stay calm. I am not the Snow Mountain King. I have no right to pity these snow people. Suddenly, Elric's eyes widened. Astonishment was written all over his face. He stood motionless, staring at the faint silhouettes appearing before him. Elric's footsteps stopped in front of a pile of upturned snow, and he reached out his hand. With frantic, desperate movements, he shoveled away layer after layer of snow. He kept digging until a patch of fabric appeared beneath. Elizabeth let out a gut-wrenching scream, scattering mounds of snow in every direction. A small figure emerged. It was the young boy, Manhwa. His eyes were squeezed shut, his brows knitted together in pain, and tears streamed down his face. The memory played clearly in his mind, Manhwa joyfully leading the way ahead. "Look, Hoa, it seems like some newcomers have arrived," he said, gesturing excitedly and innocently. "The road ahead is going to be even tougher from here on out, so let's get something to eat before we set off." Elzik knelt on the ground. Murphy stood silently behind her, not daring to speak. She glanced to the side where the bodies were displayed, their heads buried deep, stuck straight into the cold, frozen snow. "Is this what those bastards did?" Murphy hesitated. "Yes." Elzik's expression turned icy. "It's not just that. It's making my skin crawl. Even more than that. The three of them were on the run, fleeing the assassins who were hunting them down." The girl's breathing was ragged in the biting cold as she ran until one of her feet caught on an uneven patch of snow. Isabel Gio stumbled and fell hard. Seeing his mistress go down, Sao rushed over to her side, frantically asking if she was all right. "My lady, are you okay?" She was weak, her body drained of strength, but she still tried to comfort him. "I'm fine. Don't worry about me. We don't know when those assassins will return. So please focus on finding that graveyard." Sao felt his heart ache for her. She was in such a state, yet she was still holding on. "But you need to rest now, my lady." She remained resolute, refusing to give up halfway. "I am a child of the Blue Lion. I don't want to be a burden to everyone ever again." Seeing how worried he was, she stood firm, trembling, hiding her injuries and refusing to let anyone see her weakness. In this life-or-death moment, the assassins chasing them had already claimed so many lives. Because of their sacrifices, she could not fall here. She clutched the map and continued to move forward. It had already been a month. They had been searching for the graveyard for a whole month now. She paused, deep in thought, as everything began to feel overwhelming. Where on earth could it be? Her gaze, filled with sorrow, drifted to the lonely night sky. She whispered softly in her heart, "Father." In the opulent palace of the great lion clan where the banner once flew high. "The only daughter of the Blue Lion. She can't even swing a sword properly," the cowardly soldiers whispered and gossiped. The Great Lion Clan, the Jello Clan, the Blue Lion. If we go by the rule that lions only follow the strong... Another man, seeing her pass by, cut the speaker off. "Are you trying to let her hear you?" She said nothing. With one look, one expression, she walked past, though the atmosphere remained heavy. She channeled her anger into her sword training that day, swinging the blade frantically until her breath came in ragged gasps. The tip of her sword plunged into the ground with a heavy thud. "Why?" Thoughts raced through her mind incessantly. "Why am I completely devoid of talent?" The mocking comparisons haunted her. If the daughter of the Blue Lion can't do anything, what will happen to the future of the clan? From behind, her father appeared and called her name gently, Isabel. She turned back to see his kind face. The two of them sat together and talked. He blamed himself. "Father is sorry for putting this burden on your shoulders." She comforted him without a hint of resentment. "No, Father. It's just that I'm not good enough yet." He spoke with hope, never imposing his will on her. "You don't have to follow my path and become a Blue Lion." He poured his love into his low, steady voice. "You may not be gifted, but you are still a proud member of the Vlae clan." She didn't want to let her father down, but her father patted his own arm. "Don't dwell on this anymore, my daughter. Try touching these firm muscles. Your father is still as strong as an ox." She looked at him silently. That was the armor her father. "I'm sorry, Father, but..." He smiled kindly, soothing her. "Don't worry about the Blue Lion, Herman Vlae." Her eyes welled with tears as she looked at him, feeling the usual happiness. "I will still pursue my dream of becoming the greatest swordsman on the continent." She smiled radiantly, her eyes shining with joy. Inside the palace, now devoid of people, came a sorrowful voice. "Father, why won't you wake up?" A small hand gripped a large one. The doctor clearly explained the situation regarding her father's illness. "He has symptoms similar to obstructive disease," he said as the man lay in bed. Exhausted by the strain on his spirit, his health had declined, causing his muscles to atrophy. She was devastated, unable to believe what she was hearing about her father's condition. The doctor said the issue could be resolved. If we could restore his vitality, but that is nearly impossible for a human to do, he has simply lost too much. The life force within her seemed to collapse entirely at that moment. I have no other choice but to rely on some form of magic to help him. If there was a way, she was determined. She mounted her horse and galloped off. I have to save father. She had to go to the magic tower or the academy. She was willing to risk her life to get the item, even though it was dangerous. 2 blue flames ignited in front of the tower gates as the group arrived. Their magical tools were useless. A land appeared in the sunlight, but it was located at the foot of the ice mountains. I can't find anything that can treat father's illness. A sound came from a rooftop with many telescopes. Do you know there is a graveyard in the snowy mountains ruled by the Snow Mountain King? She eavesdropped on a man holding a piece of bread as he said loudly, Really? That graveyard is supposed to be full of treasures and rare items. Should we really go there? Her face twisted more and more as she heard him shout, Mausen, do you really want to get eaten by those snow monsters just for some legendary item? Her people listened in silence, their expressions tense. Don't throw your life away, just keep drinking. She looked at the map, her heart racing after working so hard to track down the graveyard. I finally knew the graveyard existed and where to find it, but unfortunately someone leaked it to a man. But the wine glass in her hand tilted. A problem had arisen. Because the plan had reached her uncle's ears, he had sent assassins to eliminate her and her followers. Run, mistress, save yourself. She had to watch her own men fall. Her uncle Bonvi, the one who had been waiting for a chance to seize the Blue Lion throne, had sent killers to end her because she was the rightful heir. She clutched the map as she walked, trembling with rage. Just how cruel could that man be? Sen noticed something and shouted back to her, Mistress Hyde, don't you understand what he's saying? A man grabbed her arm, and she froze, not knowing what was happening. Sen stood in a defensive stance to protect her. We had to search everywhere to find you lot. We were wondering which hole you'd crawled into. Well, you've shown yourselves now. The assassin stepped out, the 6th member of the Blue Wolves, an elite knight secretly dispatched by Bonvi. He smirked, saying, Since you're still members of the Yahello family, I'll at least let you go quietly. She and the other man were holding their breath, gasping for air. As he gradually realized, now that you're here, the mistress must be nearby, right? Sen lunged forward, furious. You jerk! You'll pay for the deaths of Iraq and Jap with your own life, he whispered, praying for her to run and never look back. When she tried to dash out, he grabbed her arm to stop her. Don't go out there. We're the only ones left. We can't stop them. She became even more stubborn. I have to go or Sen will die, he shouted at her, trying to calm her down. Sen is risking everything to save us. She froze, unable to deny his words, but hearing the guy call out, Mistress! Her eyes darted over, unable to look away. He stepped on Sen, taunting her. Your loyal servant is about to die. Are you just going to leave him here? Sen, lying under his foot, spat out, You idiot, the mistress is long gone. The man drove his sword down into him. He looked ahead, knowing she was close, and smiled smugly. I guess she abandoned her loyal knight. How heartless of her. Then he raised his sword to strike. I'll take your head. She couldn't abandon him, so she stepped out. Stop! He couldn't stop her in time. She rushed out, standing right in front of him, crying and shouting in a rage, Are you targeting me? Then just kill me and let Sen go. He cut her off calmly. I'm sorry. Her tears welled up as he spoke, but I won't do that. She didn't understand what he was up to. What, Henry, you traitor? He replied coldly. We've decided to kill everyone involved or anyone who has witnessed this. She couldn't believe her ears. No way, you... Stains of darkness seemed to coat him. He said bluntly, If you hadn't run away, everyone could have survived and lived happily with their families. Everything was stained with blood. Witnessing the bodies falling, the image of a child crying, the poor soul lying there, the corner of his mouth twitched into a cruel smile. She collapsed under the weight of everything she had heard, falling into grief and self-reproach. So many innocent people had died because of someone like her. She remembered back when Elric held the blue egg in his hands in front of Erohan. Previously, Elric had received a mission to make winter perfect. After his first task was complete, he prepared to leave the snowy mountain to carry out his mission, but the cruel images of the battle flashed back into his mind. He knew the snow monsters, and the loss of many innocent children and unrelated people had been ruthlessly murdered. At the same time, Isabel's group hurried on horseback. On the other hand, Isabel, who was searching for the Snow Mountain King to cure her father's illness, was being hunted by a group of Blue Wolf assassins. She was surprised by the silhouettes chasing them, the ones her uncle had sent. And at that very dangerous moment, right then, Elric stepped in and saved her. I see. One of them shouted, "Who are you?" Elric didn't answer. He muttered a teleportation spell and instantly appeared on a tree branch. Heno gritted his teeth in anger, but Elric just taunted him. Just a passing devil, that's all. Heno spat out a curse, mocking him with disdain. "You devil, what kind of idiot are you to interfere in my business? Are you some kind of devil worshipper? If you hadn't crossed my path, you might have lived." Without another word, Elric vanished in a flash. One of Heno's men spotted him, and amidst a surge of icy aura, Elric lunged forward. Heno clumsily blocked the blow, but was knocked backward. Watching from a distance, Heno was wary. "Who the hell are you?" Elric asked the man, Joshua and Isabel. "Are you two okay?" She looked at him in shock. "Yeah, I'm okay, but—" She stammered, then asked, "Elric, are you okay on the ground?" He frowned slightly. Obviously. Heno mocked him. "How humiliating. You fell, why don't you get up?" Elric thought to himself. If it weren't for this slippery snow, I could have made a much better impression. Suddenly, Isabel realized something. Wait, isn't that the person who went missing? Remembering the report of a missing person, she hurriedly warned him, "I can't let him fight all alone like this. Run. You can't win against him," Heno calmly reminded her. "And you, young lady, didn't I tell you we wouldn't leave a single witness?" He ordered his men to finish the devil off. The minions rushed at Elric, and Isabel screamed, "No!" Elric didn't care. He stood calmly still, talking to them. "That's right. Mercy is a gift." Elric's eyes flashed with a dangerous light, "But for bastards like you, it's a complete waste." Without moving, he unleashed his power. He flicked his hand, and a massive blizzard erupted, crushing the approaching mob with sheer force. Soon they were engulfed in swirling snow. Elric clenched his fist, and the men were shredded to pieces instantly. Joshua and Isabel watched in total disbelief. They stared at Heno, who was struggling to hold on to his sanity. "What the hell is this?" Heno screamed at his men. "What are you doing? Kill him now!" Another man shouted, "Don't give him a chance to cast another spell!" "Die." Elric appeared right in front of them. "Who gave you permission to do that?" His blue eyes darted around sharply. He raised his hand using a piercing spell as blades of ice shot toward the minions. Terrified screams echoed through the air as the ice raged forward, accompanied by shouts of, "Break through it!" Even the few who tried to turn and beg for mercy were blown apart, their bodies reduced to bloody scraps. As the remains fell in front of the mysterious leader, Heno gasped in pure terror. You, what the hell are you?" "You already know who we are, don't you?" Elric sighed, losing his patience. "I don't care who you are." Heno spat back. "Then why don't you kneel before me first?" Enraged, Heno yelled, "I'm going to kill you!" Isabel watched the fight in awe, wondering, who is that man? He defeated the Blue Wolf group so easily. But that wasn't the main issue. Her eyes widened. He was clearly a powerful mage, but he seemed dangerous to be around. Heno swung his sword in a desperate attempt to end him, moving with hateful speed. "At least I'm going to take you down with me." Elric was slightly surprised by the speed. "He's fast." She screamed a warning to keep his distance. Elric focused, bracing himself and reinforcing his defense. Just as the sword swung down, he dodged backward. Heno's eyes remained full of malice. Elric raised his hand again, gathering a freezing spell. A thick layer of ice encased Heno, but unexpectedly. The mysterious man had already broken free, smugly shouting, "You think you can actually stop me with that kind of magic?" He shattered the ice instantly, charging forward with a roar of rage. "You're done for, you bastard!" Elric's expression darkened, and he moved quickly. He blocked the sword strike with a thick ice wall. Heno was stunned by the self-freezing technique. He stammered, trembling, How is it not breaking?" Elric smirked. "Do you know what's more important than that?" He coolly brushed his hair back and glared at him. "It's that your head is about to be buried under this ground." Heno screamed, "You son of a—" Seconds later, Elric's final strike ended his life. He met the same fate as his men. As Heno's tattered cloak fell to the ground, Elric walked away as if nothing had happened. Joshua watched, stunned and hesitant. "I can't believe it." "He wiped out the Blue Wolf group in an instant." Isabel added, "I never thought there'd be such a powerful mage on this hill." She watched him, deeply impressed. "He doesn't look like he's much older than me." But how can he be that strong? Looking at Elric's powerful figure, Isabel felt even more curious. He's so young, yet so strong. He really is a mystery. Elric breathed out softly, closed his eyes, and looked up at the sky. Finally, a heavy sigh escaped him as Elric stood there. He quietly reminisced about those happy memories from before. His eyes drooped with sadness as he thought, please rest in peace. Movito looked at this other two and spoke to him. Why are they staring at you while you say nothing? Realizing this made Elric even more flustered. Oh, hello. I forgot to introduce myself. As soon as he spoke, it made them visibly tense with worry. He turned to look at her. It's been a while, hasn't it? Sen, standing beside her, remained on guard against him. Even if he did help us, he's still a complete stranger. We can't let our guard down this easily. If he has any other motives, he'll be just as dangerous as the others. Are you confused by your own mistress's actions? She didn't move a muscle. Then suddenly she knelt down. Thank you for being our savior. Sen panicked. Mistress. The guard beside her was also anxious. Why is my lady kneeling? Seeing this, Elric felt awkward and tried to get Isabel to stand up. No, please. There's no need to do that, Senna. Then all three of them knelt down. Thank you for being our savior. He still tried to explain whoever it was they would have done the same thing I did. So please stand up. Murphyto found their behavior amusing. Ha looks like she knows how to carry herself. Not like those two jerks from before. She stood up, faced him, and determinedly asked for something. This might sound rude, but may I ask my savior for a favor? It made him tremble. Do I have to go somewhere? She held his hand firmly and said loudly what she wanted him to do. No, I want to entrust you with a commission. He was still shaking. My hand. He looked at her confused, thinking, what is this? The night view here is so vast and full of stars. A carriage was traveling through the night. It turned out to be carrying Isabel, her guard, and Elric. He was deep in thought while the other two seemed nervous. But unexpectedly, Murphyto was also inside, and he was annoyed with Elric. You could see him smirking. Damn it, cover that up. If he was preparing to speak, Elric replied calmly, just as I expected. In Elric's hand was something like a sparkling gold coin, because I was given something extremely valuable. He recalled the moment she gave it to him. This is gold. Not only that, but it's the blue lion crest. He seemed to have guessed her background. Are you the young lady of the Yahello family? And he received her admission. Oh, that's right, and how embarrassing. Elric didn't do anything, just admired her beauty. That's why she is so beautiful. A remark about Isabel. The scentless flower, Isabel Yahello, revealed a bitter truth about her, even though her stunning beauty had made the crown prince infatuated enough to propose to her. She was still abandoned, simply because she was a scentless flower. Her lonely figure was proof of her lack of talent, a person born without any special gifts. If the flesh and blood of a lion lacks fangs and sharp teeth, they deserve that kind of ending. Elric felt pity for Isabel. He had heard that after the marriage fell apart, she lived alone on her own land. She looked sad and worried in front of him. To break the awkwardness, he introduced himself. My name is Elric. It is a great honor to meet the only daughter of the Blue Lion. She was surprised. Why is it an honor to meet someone like me? Elric reassured her. You should be proud of yourself. From what I see, your persistence is nothing to be ashamed of for the name Blue Lion. This moved her to tears due to his sincerity. Thank you. Then he brought up the matter she had asked of him earlier. Oh, right. You said something about a commission, didn't you? She quickly remembered, oh yes. I don't have much right now, but... Isabel expressed her wish. Could you escort us to the capital? Before she could finish, Sen shouted from behind, blocking her. Mistress, we still haven't found that place yet. She turned back to explain to him, Senner, I don't want to lose you all just because of my greed. First, I have to meet my uncle to negotiate. But Sen was still unwilling, mistress. Elric's silhouette faded away. Uncle, are these knights also part of the Yahello family? Could there be some hidden secret in their family? He analyzed the mystery behind her family. I also heard that the Blue Lion is suffering from a hard-to-treat illness. She's looking for a cure, right? I almost forgot. Sen had mentioned it to me before. Then he realized what he needed to do. Wait, couldn't I make the Blue Lion owe me a debt of gratitude? Elric imagined himself getting close to the Blue Lion Lord, shaking his hand and securing a unique patronage once the Melvin Go family was restored. He smirked silently, congratulating himself on his own brilliance. I really am a genius, always keeping a cool head, he thought, noticing how nervous the lady was. She was so afraid he wouldn't help that she offered to double the payment. How amusing. I doubt I could easily get your help, so I will offer you double what I just gave you. Consider it a bonus for when you complete the job. Commissioning him, Isabel became even more anxious as Elizabeth remained silent. She thought, I guess it's impossible, isn't it? To her surprise, he handed the coins back to her. How embarrassing. But then, after a moment of thought, Elizabeth spoke with a look of unwavering determination. I will escort you safely, my lady. Everyone sat in the carriage in silence. Morito couldn't understand why he would need money when he already had so much. There is a pile of treasure in the nest of the Zaynat beast, so why do you still need money? He didn't want to explain, but Elric cut him off. Don't talk like that. If you had ever experienced freezing cold and hunger. Morito looked confused, so Elric, irritated, explained, What am I supposed to do when I don't have a single penny in my pocket? It might not be important to you because you're just a trashy ghost, but humans need money to eat and sleep. You think you understand what it's like to live in deprivation. After hearing that Morito still didn't care, that was a human problem, but shifting topics, he praised his own abilities. Still, this telepathy is quite convenient. With just a little bit of energy, I can talk to whoever I want. Morito looked satisfied with Elric's expression. I only taught you that because I found you so annoying. Whenever there's someone else around, you just shut your mouth. Elric teased Morito. You're so talkative now, I know why you hate being silenced. You're the one who's talkative, Morito snapped. How dare you? He was just bored and frustrated that Elric kept sitting there silently. Forget it. Are you planning to just sit there like that for the rest of the trip? You look even more hideous than you think. What should I do now? I'm so bored. Isabel grew increasingly panicked as he remained silent. He wasn't saying anything, was it, because she had commissioned him? Her lips trembled as if she wanted to talk to him, but she really needed his help right now. A carriage ride, a castle in the night, and if the enemy sent even stronger assassins, there's no way the three of us can get past them. A subordinate knelt before the boss. The 6th squad has been wiped out. He trembled, unable to speak. I apologize. The leader stepped toward him. If you're going to apologize, your cowardice shows you shouldn't have done anything in the first place, rather than begging for forgiveness now. A flash of red blood splattered. Bao coldly called out, Hilton, where do you think Isabel is going? The useless subordinate's head had been severed as the tracks of her leaving the snowy mountains had been confirmed. Hilton's voice echoed, It's very likely she's returning to the capital. Bao seemed to guess Isabel's intentions. If she's returning to the capital, does that mean she wants to negotiate with me? Hilton replied cunningly, Most likely. The Blue Wolf Squad Captain Hilton, as it turned out, the leader, was Isabel's father, but he despised her. What a foolish child! How could a daughter with no talent dare to negotiate with me? Bao called his name, his coat fluttering as he stood at the highest position to give orders. You only have one chance. The black horse hooves slowly came to a halt. Sen returned to inform Isabel that they had reached their destination. The magnificent capital appeared in the early morning. We've reached Le Center, my lady. She let out a sigh of relief, smiling and rubbing her shoulders. We arrived in just 2 days of non-stop travel. I'm so tired. Morito trembled from exhaustion, but Elric teased him with a laugh. For a ghost that can fly like you, he chuckled mockingly. Morito didn't want to stop. Don't you know that the right posture helps relax the nerves? Why are you hanging upside down? In front of the gate was a group in blue cloaks checking entrance. It turned out to be a squad. They were the summoned Blue Wolf Squad. 2 subordinates kneeling on the ground gasped in shock upon receiving the news. They were surprised that a task they considered minor required so many formidable people. Is it really necessary to mobilize the strongest squad to deal with such a trivial matter? The lady's return to the capital means she accepts defeat. Hilton appeared covered in splattered blood. A hunting dog must behave according to its status. The blood on his face made him look even more delighted. She definitely has to pass through La Center if she wants to go from the snowy mountains to the imperial capital. He left the sentence hanging, but the intent behind his words was full of malice for that place. The eyes of one of the men widened in terror. The lion's head, the symbol of the Blue Lion Group. Their cold, bloodthirsty faces showed no mercy as a cold command rang out. ActionToon. Turn that place into their graveyard. Isabel could never have expected this turn of events. Seeing the situation, Senem also had to suggest turning back, but she firmly and decisively replied, No. Suddenly, a member of the Blue Lion Squad seemed to notice something unusual and pointed toward her carriage. Seeing that, she realized her people had been spotted. Isabel quickly found a counter-strategy: abandon the carriage, secretly escape, and find somewhere else. But Elizabeth spoke up to stop her. Ignoring his advice, she panicked while he calmly used transformation magic just as they approached the carriage to check it. And luckily, they managed to pass through, but those gazes remained glued to the carriage, looking terrifying. The carriage quickly sped into the city. Ahead, a light shone, as if beckoning them. Inside, the scene was sparkling and magnificent. They stopped the carriage and stepped out one by one. Isabel couldn't wait. She asked him about the type of transformation magic he had just used. He smiled brightly and replied, "That was just a simple illusion spell." After thanking Elric, they stopped at an inn while he quickly wanted to go somewhere else. Morito grumbled again, asking why Elric made things so hard on himself. "Why use magic when you could just wipe them all out?" Elric answered his confusion. "I don't want to start a war when I know nothing about the enemy. Plus, I need to save my mana for emergencies." He then asked condescendingly about the contract. "What do you think oaths and soul contracts are for, or are you just being lazy?" Morito remained confused, as there were still tasks to handle that were proving to be time-consuming. At this point, Elric replied with a mysterious air, "But there's something I need to look into." Elric wondered to himself, though he wasn't sure who he was talking to. Quite some time had passed already. "But surely you still remember, right?" The image of Dean surfaced in his mind, along with a feeling of contempt. "I need to know Dean's current status to prepare for getting rid of the old man." Morito's ears perked up at the sound of children playing. It was only then that he remembered something he needed to tell him. "I have a question. I sensed something like mana from those nights earlier." "What was that?" Elric offered his guess. "Oh, I suppose your era didn't have spirit chains yet." Seeing that Morito was still quite confused, Elric repeated the term. Elric explained it thoroughly. "It's simple. Mana is a blessing for mages, but over time even martial artists developed methods to utilize it." He gestured, representing a female mage and a knight as opposites. "If mages cast spells by creating magic circles in their hearts, martial artists strengthen their bodies by accumulating spirit chains around their dantian. The dantian is the part of the body where energy gathers." Next, images of children appeared, along with a mage team and a sword blending orange and blue hues. Elric used that example to explain the ranking system in the worlds of magic and martial arts to Morito. Morito was surprised that there were so few ranks. Elric replied calmly, "That's usually the case. But there are exceptions. Only one person can circulate more than 5 chains." That exception piqued Morito's interest. He wanted to know who could be that strong. Elric smiled, amused by the question. He introduced the person to him, the Golden Lion. He's recognized as the strongest on the continent. Morito didn't believe it and immediately denied it. "Just an arrogant nickname by human standards, nothing more." Elric didn't hesitate to counter, "Not this time." "Different," he retorted, irritated. Just then they arrived at the place Elric intended. Hearing this, Morito smirked with interest. "I look forward to meeting him." The two stood in front of a newspaper stand. "That old man is being stubborn again." "Don't pay him any mind. What's more important is—" It turned out he wanted to find out all the information he didn't have yet. "Can I buy all the newspapers from the last month?" Scene shift to a large mansion. The matter still wasn't resolved. A subordinate knelt at Dean's feet, apologizing only to be cursed at even more severely. "Forgive me, the Nemeter forces are guarding the hospital like a fortress. It can't be breached." The ungrateful wretch. Devon then recounted Dean's glorious past to calm him down, while Dean, still cautious, wanted an overwhelming victory. He laughed sinisterly. "Please give the order." Dean smiled craftily and commanded, "Put more pressure on those Nemeter fools." Swang sat in his room, feeling helpless. Cadonis came in to announce the transfer of the excavation rights to him. He let out a trembling laugh that left Cadonis bewildered. "Young master." He looked up. His face filled with misery, eyes streaming with tears, looking utterly devastated. "My sister comes to torture me every single day, and that bastard Elric hasn't reached out. Not even once." He then touched the documents on the table. "But I have steeled myself." As if nothing had happened, he added with a hint of interest, "I will endure until Elric returns." Back on Elric and Morito's side, they were reading the newspapers they had just bought. Elric silently remarked that Dean was as cunning as ever. "And son, because of me, is facing hell." Elric was delighted by Dean's shrewd handling of the situation. "The older the ginger, the spicier it gets. You know how to use public opinion, don't you?" "Old man Dean." Morito looked at his malevolent expression and could only think that he was getting used to this face. He clenched his fists, shouting angrily, "Keep climbing higher and higher. It will only make my eventual takedown of you even more spectacular." Elric thought deeply. "Regardless, I feel a bit sorry for Sun. Is there anything I can do for him?" An orange light flashed through the doorway. A powerful flame erupted from that orange glow, and both of them turned toward the fire in alarm. Shouts of, "It's burning, bring water," filled the air, and cries for help. "Mom, someone, save us." Elric panicked and rushed to kick the door open, but he froze at the sight before him. A massive fire engulfed everything, blinding him to anything else. What the hell is this? A large house stood before them, a carriage parked in front. A voice full of suspicion rang out. "My lady, do you really trust Rick?" Isabel sat in a chair, intently watching the paper on the table. "He is the one who saved us." Sen stood behind her, questioning. "Even if he isn't Ponvai's subordinate, who's to say he isn't an assassin sent by other mages to seize the main estate?" She continued to advise. "I'm not sure about this either, but we should still be on our guard just in case." Isabel thought to herself that she understood Sen's concern, but it seemed that ever since the snow mountain he had been overprotecting her. She turned her head to comfort Sen. "I understand what you're trying to say." Sen hurriedly asked, "Yes, my lady. And then—" She pointed to the map in her hand and interrupted in a stern voice. "Stop talking like that. Doubting him is the same as questioning my decision." Sen and Ed froze instantly, their expressions full of disbelief. She recalled Elzic's profile, that look of his, she believed in it. Only those who are truly straightforward would show an expression like that. The image of him clutching her hand was still vivid in her mind. Sen hesitated, cutting in, "I understand, but isn't he just a money-hungry mercenary?" Isabel smiled faintly. "No, he genuinely wants to help us." A skeptical voice rang out again. "Are you saying, my lady—" She turned to the two of them and replied softly, "He's helping us even though he isn't being paid, isn't he? That proves that even if we had asked, he wouldn't have helped." Isabel remembered Elzic's expression when she presented the family crest and continued. But his expression changed the moment he realized we were from the Gallo family. She spoke seriously to Sen and Ed. He deliberately lowered his profile because he was afraid of hurting his reputation. Ed heard this and broke into a smile. "I see. He did that to maintain the Blue Lion's reputation." Sen's face looked a bit strained. "I see how it is." Isabel blushed, her eyelashes fluttering down. "So—" A massive explosion suddenly erupted, and the entire city was engulfed in a sea of flames. A mocking voice echoed, "The fire looks so vibrant, doesn't it? A man with a scar on his face, looking quite fierce with his hair slicked back. He was the Blue Wolf 3rd Squad Captain Simonon." Looking at the scene in front of him, he couldn't help but exclaim, "A magic scroll containing 4th circle magic. Primitive thermal lines are definitely worth the price." The other man, who was shorter and stout, was the Blue Wolf 2nd Squad Captain Betcop. He stood beside him, frowning, unable to stop himself from questioning. "It's already like this, and you're still laughing." Simonon flicked the scroll that was slowly dissolving in his hand, speaking mockingly. "You agreed to this. Why be so serious now? I spent a lot on this, too." Betcop pursed his lips silently, cursing that he couldn't come up with anything better, but the young mistress wouldn't give up. Simonon looked toward him. "What do we do now? Should we burn more?" "Burn more?" Betcop instructed sternly. "The 6th Squad was wiped out, but there are still mages, so be careful." Simonon replied, "Make the remaining embers fly away," speaking with an uncaring tone. "Forget it, don't worry so much. Even if it is the 6th Squad, I only need to close my eyes for a second to burn them all to ashes. You and Huter are always worrying too much." He smiled slightly. "Since we've already gone to the trouble of coming here, I hope they're strong enough for me to have some fun." Betcop narrowed his eyes. "Then let's get started." The Blue Blade Knights appeared, each kneeling on one knee, lined up in straight rows. The leader spoke, giving the order, "Find her." The roaring fire consumed the house. Isabel lay flat on the ground. The captain's order echoed. "Except for the girl at the head, kill everyone else," Sen shouted after that, warning her. "My lady, please run away. If it's the Blue Wolves doing this, then you are their target." Her body trembled as she tried to stand up. "Chan Ed, are you two okay?" Isabel gritted her teeth, stunned by the scene before her. "What the hell?" The massive flames devoured everything around her. Screams of despair rang out everywhere. "Fire! It's on fire! Help me!" Isabel knelt frozen, watching the chaos. "Ah, my shop run." Citizens with blood-covered faces were screaming in terror. Corpses lay slumped on the ground and laments filled the air. "Is this reality?" Isabel choked up. "What do you want?" A worried cry rang out, making her turn back in alarm. "My lady! Watch out!" The huge explosion caused the fire to erupt violently, throwing her into the air. Isabel's body slowly fell. She knelt on the ground, trembling. Sen was pinned under the rubble, still pleading with her. "Please, please run away." Beside Isabel's hand, a sword suddenly appeared. She clenched her teeth tightly, trembling as she gripped the hilt, her whole body filled with helplessness. Dust swirled around her and stone debris fell everywhere. Isabel whispered to herself, "I want to try and face this to save everyone, but—" She stood up straight. Ignoring her body, which couldn't stop trembling, she thought, "I don't have enough strength nor enough talent to stop them." Isabel bit her lip. "I don't want to run away. I don't want to live such a shameful life." She suddenly remembered Elzic's gentle smile, remembering his words. "The way I see it, your persistence doesn't bring any shame to the Blue Lion name." In her heart, she made a resolution. "I want to become someone like him." A powerful attack flew from the air toward Isabel. "I am a member of the Glow Empire's protector family." She tensed up, readying her combat stance. Even if she had to die, Isabel gripped the sword, her expression resolute. "I will still fight to the end." The collision of power caused a massive explosion. Dust and smoke filled the air. Isabel squeezed her eyes shut, trembling, waiting for the worst to happen. After a moment, feeling no movement, she opened her eyes. The stone barrier was still intact. What? What was that? Cold currents of air extinguished the flames around her, leaving Isabel completely stunned. What just happened? A tall figure stood blocking the path in front of her. Blizzards of snow swirled in the air. The attention was diverted toward the city. Cold gusts of ice and snow rapidly flew toward the houses. The gusts of snow swirled through the air, drawing everyone's attention toward the city as waves of icy frost quickly swept over the houses. The air was filled with a freezing chill everywhere. The houses were no longer burning, and cheers of excitement kept ringing out. The fire was being put out. "We've been saved." On the other side, Isabel was completely stunned. What is happening? Tears suddenly welled up in her eyes, pooling at the corners. Isabel looked toward the man standing in front with stone and debris falling around his back. She choked out a cry. Looking at his profile, she wondered to herself how long it would take. His feet stepped firmly forward, but if it were even possible, Elric launched himself forward. Isabel stood behind, watching him. "I hope that one day I will be able to stand by his side." He gritted his teeth, looking incredibly angry at the devastated scene before him, with buildings collapsed, crushing countless people. Elric was absolutely furious. As knights, how could they slaughter innocent civilians? He landed where Morphedo was already waiting. Strong people are very good at suppressing their own rage, but once it explodes, it is hard to extinguish. The captain of the Blue Scale Knights stood on the sharp roof of a building. The squad stood below, ready for orders. He remained lost in his own thoughts. "This is something I have faced before, unlike them for whom this is their first time." Morphedo stood beside him with his arms crossed, his eyebrows slightly raised with interest. "It seems like, compared to when we last met, they are both more numerous and stronger now. Do you think you can win?" The townspeople gathered in crowds, their faces terrified and covered in wounds. Elric calmly replied, "It's tough. I can't maintain this, and I can't use magic before." The people of Morphedo asked suspiciously, "If that's the case, why don't you just run away?" His feet hovered in the air as a golden flow of power slowly appeared, surrounding him. "My family has a saying." Smoke and dust filled the air everywhere. The people fell into a state of panic and fear. Those who possess power have an obligation to fulfill their responsibilities. Elric's body erupted with a massive source of power. Golden lightning bolts wrapped around his body. His voice was calm but authoritative. "That is the reason why the strong are always the ones to lead in every battle." Isabel had decided to negotiate with her uncle. Paolo Elric decided to go with Isabel after accepting her request. Furthermore, Paolo had lost his subordinates, so Elric sent the elite Blue Wolf team. To assassinate Isabel, they turned the entire city into a sea of fire. Isabel flew into a rage and drew her sword, even though she might be weak in a fight. And at that moment, in a situation where departure was unavoidable, but then a tall man's figure appeared, none other than Elric Melvingo. Debris flew everywhere around him. He slowly turned around, his whole body bursting with blinding power. He hovered in the air. The other guys below all looked up. Sormunen asked Backdrop, who was standing nearby. "These scrolls I bought with money." My sweat, my tears. It should have been a 7th circle magic circle. Where did a guy like that crawl out from? Did he come out of the magic tower? Backdrop. What should we do now? You can't touch the magic tower. Elric Melvingo was still standing on the roof. Looking down with glowing eyes, Backdrop replied, "Sormunen, I know every mage in the magic tower, but I don't recognize him. Whatever happens, we must be careful. His face exudes danger. We just need to kill the young lady and retreat." Sormunen stuck out his disgusting tongue. "What if that mage intervenes?" Isabel stood holding her sword, panicked, as she saw the two of them rushing toward her. At this moment, Backdrop continued the conversation from before, "Then kill him too." The two of them jumped at the same time, preparing to attack the girl. Isabel's eyes widened in total panic. "My legs have no strength left at all." Elric Melvingo suddenly appeared right in front of her and called her name Isabel. Isabel was a bit surprised, turning to look at him. Elric also turned his head to look at her. His eyes seemed to say something. Isabel looked at him with a determined gaze. Light trails crisscrossed like a maze in the air. A guy shouted, "They're running away formation. A team 3. Come with me." Elric Melvingo picked up Isabel and sped away. He calculated internally. There are over 40 of them. Behind him, blue lights were chasing incessantly. I have to lure them somewhere without any people. A guy at this end blocked his path. He had a whistle in his mouth and blew it. Elric Melvingo slowly hovered down to the ground. He was surrounded by a crowd. Suddenly his whole body shone bright, and he teleported to another spot. Isabel, still being held in his arms, gasped in surprise. Those guys were still clinging on persistently. They brandished their swords and rushed at Elric Melvingo. He ducked, his cloak fluttered, and Isabel vanished without a trace. Elric Melvingo slid a distance on the ground, kicking up thick smoke. He suddenly froze when he saw he was surrounded on all 4 sides. A voice rang out from behind him. "Elric Melvingo, I found you now." Sormunen rested his sword on his shoulder and laughed deviously. "My first time hunting a mage, I'm a bit excited," he yelled, interrogating him. "Where did you hide the young lady?" Elric. Melvingo smirked. "You think I'm going to answer you? You guys really are a bunch of idiots." He laughed triumphantly at them. "Sormunen, of course you guys wouldn't know, because all of you just know how to chase me around like a pack of dogs." Sormunen's face flushed with veins fuming. "Do you want to die?" he shouted, ordering his subordinates. "Take his head for me." Elric Melvingo was blinded by their blue light. He had to raise his hand to shield himself. "I've already exhausted so much mana putting out the fires all over the city." Elric clenched his fists, bracing for a fight. He was calculating the mana levels. The dragon team's power had surged after absorbing the seal, but his own body wouldn't be able to handle the strain like last time. If I push past my limits again. He recalled the moment he'd been hacked to pieces. He could respawn back then, but now if he dies even once, it's all over. Elric Melvin. Go broke into a cold sweat, his expression turning anxious. "Are there 30, 40, maybe 10 of them? I heard they all come out even to deal with just one person." Just as Isabel said. A blade was raised. Elric Melvin. Go lunged forward. "I'll take out their commander first." But the group countered him effortlessly, catching him off guard. "What the—" "My body isn't moving as well as it did when I fought the Snow Mountain King." One of them laughed mockingly. You're sure you're the one who beat the Snow Mountain King?" "No, that's not—" Melvin Go stammered. "I'm certain that back then, my body moved exactly how I wanted it to." The guy barked a curse that made Elric freeze. "You idiot!" A massive wave of force tore past, sending debris flying. Everything went blindingly bright, looking terrifying. Elric Melvin Go collapsed to the ground. The guy slammed his sword down right next to his face and sneered, "Did you really think the board game that Otto set up for you would be anything like reality? If you aren't going to help, then shut the hell up." Elric Melvin Go shouted in frustration. "Get lost, all of you." He suddenly jolted up and launched himself at the guy. Catching him off guard, Burkock poked his head out, sticking his tongue out. "What kind of mage is dumb enough to engage in melee combat? Why aren't you using your almighty magic, huh?" Elric Melvin. Go gritted his teeth in fury. The bastard fired 2 beams of searing damage simultaneously. Elric quickly crossed his arms over his chest to block. He laughed arrogantly. "Is that all you've got, brat? Burkock jumped up, swinging his sword down. Entertain me some more. Elric Melvin. Go ducked to dodge the blow. A terrifying beam of light pierced down from above. Burkock attacked mercilessly while laughing. Elric tilted his head back, eyes wide, as the ground suddenly glowed with a blinding light. He couldn't see anything around him. Burkock slowly approached Elric's silhouette. Run away like a rat, then, he sneered as his subordinates surrounded him. Elizabeth Melvin Go looks like the rat is trapped now, huh? He said confidently, let's end this. A streak of fiery red light shot into the sky, bursting into a brilliant display of fireworks. Burkock looked up, stunned. What the hell is that? Fire. Elizabeth Melvin. Go smiled smugly. You're all here, aren't you? A magic circle appeared. Burkock stammered in disbelief. A magic circle? He started to panic and screamed, Stop! Stop what you're doing! His eyes bulged as he looked at Elric Melvin Go, seeing his eyes burning like fire. Huh! How can a human have eyes like that? He immediately ordered his men. Stab him before he activates it. Elric Melvin Go wore a bone-chilling smile. Burkock gritted his teeth, struggling against a terrifying wave of power. Elric spoke, his voice ice cold. You want to kill me? Meanwhile, Elric was carrying Isabel away from the area. As they traveled, he asked about their fighting style. She replied honestly, they always fight as a pack, even if they're only killing one person. Suddenly, a cloud of blue fire enveloped the area behind them. Elric couldn't help but remark, just like their name, they really are like a pack of wolves. In a few short seconds, the enemies were right on their heels. Isabel, in his arms, suddenly made a suggestion. When you use your magic, I just have to lure them to the plaza and kill them all. If we set a trap, even better. Eric smiled faintly and replied, A trap, huh? Suddenly, he stopped walking. This action made Isabel look worried. Rick, she whispered. However, he replied in a conflicted voice, Isabel, I'm sorry, but can I ask you a favor? Right after that, a spark of fire raced forward at incredible speed. It tore through the air in a heartbeat, then suddenly exploded in the sky. It illuminated a vast area. What seemed frightening turned out to be fireworks. It accentuated Elric's cold demeanor. After you evacuate the civilians from the plaza, rip the magic signal scroll. I will kill them all. Elric hovered in the air, his whole body radiating a brilliant glow. He kept repeating, kill. His power was quickly unleashed. The large area was soon submerged in silver light. Those in the plaza were caught off guard as a massive block of ice appeared. One by one, they were frozen solid with no way to escape. Watching this scene, Eric was satisfied, commenting, magic circles are really good for mana recovery. Someone trapped in the ice used their last breath to stutter, no way. He didn't stop mocking them. How stupid can you be not to see me drawing a magic circle? Elric reached out a hand toward his opponent and began casting magic. His action made the other guy tremble. Terrified, he cried out, Stay back! But as Elric prepared to cast, he noticed something strange. Elric whispered, I won't be able to die in peace, will I? Suddenly, a member of the Grey Wolf Squad jumped out, throwing a punch that seemed to tear through space, aiming to separate him from the target. Burkock offered some praise. Not bad, but your luck has run out. This statement made Elric freeze for a moment, his eyes gradually hardening with constant vigilance. He was completely surrounded by his opponents, hemmed in by towering walls of ice. Beckett ordered the formation B. Standing at a distance, he watched Elric, who was standing motionless, and calculated silently. He lured us in close to wipe us all out with a magic circle. One must be confident and have thorough calculations to pull that off. He's smiling. Does he know we're hiding and watching him? No way he knows we're here. If he knew, he wouldn't have used the magic circle. After a moment of thought, Beckett suddenly made a decision. I'll spare your life if you hand over the young lady. Elric replied calmly, Is that so? But the problem is, I don't intend to let you live past this moment. A powerful surge of magic erupted from his body, engulfing the entire space. Elric looked at his opponents with disdain, his voice dripping with mockery. You shouldn't have done that. Corrupt knights deserve no mercy. Suddenly, Beckett gripped his sword tight, charging at him with eyes full of hatred, shouting. Protecting his bot with spiritual energy and maintaining the formation against this onslaught, Elric just calmly pointed his hand and whispered a chant to dull the blade. The blade didn't seem affected. It swung toward him with renewed strength, catching Elric by surprise and forcing him to dodge. He couldn't help but think, what kind of curse is this? Why is it having no effect? After swinging his attack, Beckett quickly spun around with sharp, piercing eyes. Elric hurriedly unleashed another spell, his face tightening with determination. Blow them away! However, the opponent's sword continued to thrust firmly toward him. This sight made Elric ponder, the wind spell is much weaker, too. Is it because the seal curse makes all non-ice magic weaker than my own? Do I need to get a seal of the same element? To use it effectively. Let's assume that's the case. Is it really that easy to use a sealing curse? He argued, no, it's incredibly difficult. Unlike the ice mountain, which is filled with ice energy, it can't release its full power in the middle of the city, and it drains too much mana. He thought while fighting, but it seemed the mana he used was useless. Finally, Elric made a decision and began launching fierce attacks against his opponents. Facing this situation, they quickly used their swords to block the powerful magical waves. As that magic energy slowly seeped into their blades, seeing this, Elric immediately created a more potent magical mixture. He instinctively thought, it's not that there's no way, and suddenly flung his hand hard toward his opponents. He yelled, move! The people present there couldn't budge. Their only choice was to crouch down and brace themselves against the gale force wind created by Elric. One of them seemed to snap out of it. He raised his sword high and shouted with a commanding voice, block them! The sharp blade slashed through the ice. It was as if it had been reinforced with power as it lunged forward. Elric stood there with an imposing posture. He calmly swung both hands down, creating waves of light that blocked the opponent's strike. Beckett at this moment refused to be outdone. His eyes carried immense determination. He kept stretching his arms out to both sides, making the scene overflow with colorful magic. Suddenly, small wounds appeared on Beckett's sword-wielding hand, blood trickling out continuously, and scratches began to appear on his face. Elric's finger slowly pointed forward, moving gradually. His eyes radiated a brilliant, magical aura that quickly enveloped Elric's entire body. He nimbly darted past the crowd. Elric kept unleashing magic upon his opponents, his cold voice echoing, enough playing around. I don't have time to play with you all, so I'll end it here. Kill every last one of you! The group was frozen solid by the magic. They stuttered, how? Just by touching the ice poison, we get frozen instantly. Your mistake was blocking it, instead of rushing in to fight. Beckett's eyes were bloodshot. He widened his eyes, stuttering, I've never heard of a curse like that. Suddenly, Elric mocked, what are you surprised about? I just added a curse to the ice spell, that's all. During the chaos, the person Beckett had saved earlier managed to escape. He laughed arrogantly. The captain of the first squad is truly the biggest fool of them all. He shouldn't have just sent us. I admit you're very skilled, but you will soon regret daring to mess with us. You'll die at the hands of the captain soon enough. A curious voice suddenly sounded. So that's him, the one who plotted all this on the way to hell. You won't be lonely. I'll send him down to join you soon. A nearby space was completely covered in freezing ice. A voice suddenly rang out. What is this? It's a scroll containing a level 6 fire element magic circle. We escaped him because Beckett held him back, but we the Blue Wolf Squad are the swordsmen of Lord Vale. Whoever becomes the next Blue Lion cannot just tuck their tail and run away like that. We could just run for it. Run until your feet blister and catch fire, and if that's not enough, set yourself ablaze and keep running. Smoner's eyes had turned manic. He burned the scroll in his hand, in an instant his voice dripping with malice. Even if the lady dies, it doesn't matter. Use your own lives to burn this city to the ground. A vast space was quickly swallowed by ice and snow. We are the Blue Wolves, the trump card of Lord Ponvai. How could we who will become the Blue Lions just tuck our tails and run? Keep running, run until your feet are raw, set them on fire, and if need be, use your own bodies as fuel. Even if she dies, it's fine. Even if it costs your life, turn this place to ash. Suddenly, Murphyto burst into laughter. XM, they're planning to pull some crazy stunt again. This made Elric wonder why. Suddenly, his eyes widened as if he'd realized the critical point. Without hesitation, Elric dashed into the air, cursing loudly, You bastards! In the shimmering space, Murphyto's voice echoed, In this world, the only species capable of being more corrupt than demons is humans. No matter how much they pretend to be civilized, in the end, that is their true face. Elric searched frantically, even as exhaustion began to take hold. He was panting heavily, unable to stop himself from thinking, Currently, there are only 3 of us blue wolves left. I don't see anyone else. And even more dangerous, they have the magic manual in their hands. At least a 6th circle spell. Just one small mistake, and this whole city will turn to ash. Smoner laughed triumphantly, muttering to himself, let's see how you stop this. Meanwhile, Elric glided past the bottom of a tower, but he still spotted him on the roof. Smoner held the scroll with a smug, provocative smile. It's already too late. At that very moment, Elric spotted him too. His gaze turned icy as he cleared his throat. Suddenly, the opponent gripped his sword and pointed it forward. The very next second, Smoner's arm was severed and flew away while he hadn't even realized what had happened yet. Elric landed on the ground with a cool swagger. He smirked, his voice dripping with mockery. I had a hunch when we were on the mountain. Who would have thought it was actually you? You really don't know. Fear, huh? Daring to strip off the gear I gave you and run away seems my A+ rank crafting skills are worth something after all. That soundless manual? It's truly effective. Isabel's gaze involuntarily filled with horror. It seemed she had noticed something unusual. Smoner used his remaining hand to grab his sword and lunged at her, screaming in fury, Die! Luckily, Elric's strike immediately blocked his action. Murphyto's whole body was gradually freezing over. Elric's voice rang out cold as ice. Looks like you tried. But you're going to die anyway, why bother? What's with that attitude I only cut off your arm and you're making such a scene? You were ugly to begin with and now you look even worse. I'm tired of this. Let's end it. Facing this, Smoner wasn't scared at all. He arrogantly provoked him. You think it's over? His words made Elric confused and he kept questioning, what? Smoner kindly reminded him, did you forget about the other 2? The image of the village flickered into view instantly. Soon the entire scene of the village was clearly displayed. Smoner stood on the roof of a sturdy house, his voice filled with arrogance. While you were busy messing around here with me, my subordinates have already finished everything. Even though I lost to you, we blue wolves, the Lord's trump card, will never lose to the likes of you witches. You were too careless. This place will soon become a hell full of resentment. Elric let Smoner enjoy his last moment of joy, then he spoke up. We already stopped them. His words made the opponent so angry his body shook uncontrollably. He stammered, What? Elric immediately countered, You mocked me earlier for using the magic I'm so proud of. The moment he locked eyes with Smoner earlier flashed through Elric's mind, making him feel a bit awkward. Back then he had swiftly used hidden magic. Accompanying that with a cunning smile, Elric shouted, The rest of the spell, causing the area to be blanketed by magic in a heartbeat. He couldn't help but feel smug, whispering, See that? The remaining bolt hit another guy in the stomach, leaving him only enough time to open his mouth in pain. Hearing Elric's mocking voice, Smoner was so scared his face turned pale. Elric kept going. Even your trump cards are gone now. The man screamed repeatedly. No way! It's a trick. It's definitely a trick. My lady, please listen to me. If you let me live, I will definitely speak well of you to Lord Ponvi. We only intended to scare you a little and escort you to him, that's all. I am the captain of the 3rd Squadron of the Blue Wolves. He will surely listen to me. Isabel couldn't stand it anymore. She decisively drew her sword and slashed with all her might toward him. Her voice remained cold, staining the Vi family's name one more time. And just like that, Smoner's life ended under her blade. When she regained her composure, Isabel felt a bit guilty. She turned to Elric, her voice much softer. I'm sorry I was too hot-headed. He gently comforted her. It's okay. I originally intended to hand him over to you and tenderly ask if you were hurt anywhere. Isabel's body shuddered uncontrollably and she stammered, I'm okay. Just then Elric reached out to soothe her. Your body must be in shock. Just give it a moment. She suddenly wore a satisfied smile, her voice growing firmer than before, Rick. He replied softly, I'm here. Immediately after, Isabel pleaded with him, Could you please spare the Blue Wolf? I never imagined that knights from a noble house would ever want to associate with a failure like me. Even if they respect me, that respect is only because you are the daughter of the Blue Lion. But that's all there is to it. The Blue Wolves only show me respect occasionally. Otherwise, they don't. They always stare at me with cold eyes filled only with contempt. However, Isabel subconsciously recalled stories from the past. A blue wolf was kneeling before her, questioning, Why let me live? As soon as he finished speaking, he received the answer, Because we wanted to leave one of you alive, as a message. Now those blue wolves are afraid of me. She commanded, Tell my uncle that he will never be able to become the Blue Lion. Of course, to be more precise, they were afraid of Rick. Isabel hurriedly left the place. Behind her, Elric waved goodbye, thinking, if only I had power and ability. No, I must be strong. What is the point of wallowing in self-pity? To gain strength, I must shed this cowardly nature. Suddenly, Elric took the initiative. Where will you go now? Isabel smiled brightly and replied, I'm heading to Konoha. My father has future plans brewing there. He was slightly surprised and asked, You want to expand your influence? She replied, Yes, I will ask those old acquaintances who owe my father a debt to help. Elric didn't stop praising her. That's a wise decision. No one would dare set foot near the Blue Lion's domain. Even so, Isabel was still a bit pensive. Yes, because the Blue Lion is there. But if father doesn't wake up, it will be a tough battle. If Rick helps us, maybe. But a lion must not get involved with a mage. Thoughts kept flooding in, crowding Isabel's mind. Moreover, I already owe Rick too much. I don't want to rely on him any longer. Now is the time to say goodbye. Suddenly, Elric handed her a stack of papers and said, Take this. Curious, she subconsciously asked, What is this, documents? Elric's sincere voice resonated. Sorry to be so abrupt, but I heard about the illness the Blue Lion is suffering from. Yes, it seems similar to blockage syndrome. I don't know if it will help, but this is the medicine to treat it. His expression seemed to move Isabel. She shouted involuntarily, What? Nearby, near a ruined wall, Elric was trying to heal and he winced in pain. What do you mean? Sen, sitting beside him, looked suspicious and asked, Blockage syndrome. However, he didn't pay any attention to those words. Elric remained focused on treating his wounds. He suddenly stood up and said, Allow me to introduce myself. This action left Isabel a bit flustered. She asked instinctively, Introduce yourself. As Elric raised his hand, a brilliant light suddenly appeared all over his body. He calmly stated, My name is Elric Melvin G. From the Melvin G family, the Starlight Duke. That is a title granted to Ion Melvin G, the Star Knight Magic King, a title bestowed after his great victory against the demon clan, symbolizing his heroic brilliance on the battlefield. Although a title is just a title, his name alone is enough to symbolize glory. The Starlight Magic King? When the bearded man had almost fully recovered, Isabel stepped forward and asked slowly, Do you mean the one still in a coma at the Royal Magic Hospital? But I heard that person. Before she could finish, Elric, standing opposite her, wore a harmonious smile. He explained gently, I cannot tell you the whole story, but it is true that I once suffered from blockage syndrome. And immediately she hurriedly pulled out the papers he had given her earlier, her voice full of suspicion. Now, not letting her finish her sentence, Elric continued, What you are holding in your hand is the very medicine that cured me. The Blue Lion's condition seems similar to this disease. Perhaps it will help a little. Don't you want to take your revenge for the past? If the Blue Lion cannot witness that, it would be a shame. In that moment, Isabel stood stunned, her lips trembling, but she couldn't say a word. A tear suddenly rolled down her cheek and her voice became choked. How can I ever repay this kindness? Elric gently patted her head, comforting her. It's all right. In the future, I will ask you to repay this kindness, definitely. The two said nothing more. They just stood there, silent. Elric's gaze at Isabel was filled with nothing but affection. She slowly broke into a happy smile. Suddenly, Isabel's face darkened, and she gave a triumphant smile as she questioned the other person. So to pay you back in some small way, this time I'll go with Sir Rick. No, Sir Elizabeth it is. Do you want me to help you become a hero? Meanwhile, elsewhere, the scene is utter devastation. A voice cries out in shock, Clear the path for the patients. Another shouts, Hey, get over here and give me a hand. Hey, come here and help me out. Suddenly, a familiar voice rings out. Is it really okay to reveal your identity like this? This makes Elzic pause and reflect. That guy Paul will do whatever it takes to track him down. He's already slaughtered so many of his blue wolves. That man is a sore loser who hates to see his plans fail. Besides, his magic is so unique. If he turns the academy upside down, his secret is bound to come out. Seeing the look on Morphedo's face, he suddenly adopts a mocking tone. So you'd better get ready for the show, because either way, the cat's going to be out of the bag soon enough. Everyone waves happily toward the front. This scene keeps Elzic's inner monologue going. He tells himself that by helping the Blue Lions, he's made a solid step toward restoring his family name. Melvin G, huh? Morphedo suddenly chimes in, praising him. You've not only built up a huge reputation, but you've also laid a solid foundation for the future. I thought you were only good for magic. Who knew you were so calculated too? Just then, a woman holding her child stands nearby. She speaks up with a tone of regret. Must you leave already, sir? Why not stay a little longer? Elzik gives a strained smile. I can't. I've troubled everyone long enough. It's time I returned to my own life. She gently touches her child's innocent face, her voice filled with gratitude. Thank you, sir. If it hadn't been for you defeating those evil men, we might have... Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out, grabbing Elzik's attention. You've worked so hard, sir. I don't know how to repay you. He replies with a weary sigh. Why do you look so guilty? I already told you I was just doing my duty. Sen introduces herself formally. I am Sen, a knight of Vi. I will never forget this debt of kindness. Facing this overly formal display, Elzik says with a bored tone, I already told you there's no need for that. Morphedo sighs helplessly, thinking to himself that this guy is only doing this for future profit. He curses under his breath. Give it a rest, will you? Elzik quickly changes the subject. What are you going to do now, Sen? She thinks for a moment and replies. A moment later, she answers with a solemn tone. Even though the one who caused this was Paul Vi, it was still my family's sin. So I vow to help the people here, until the very end, and then I will go to Canoe to reunite with my mistress. Morphedo stands behind them, mocking, so she wants to win over the public's favor, and amplify Paul Vi's disgrace at the same time. She looks so innocent, but her schemes are endless, aren't they? Elzik contemplates the responsibility. Morphedo narrows his eyes and shoots him a look. His gaze is clearly annoyed now. Elzik looks over at the people waving happily at him, asserting once more that it is the duty of a noble. The voices of the crowd overlap, never-ending. Thank you, Sir Mage. When I grow up, I want to be a mage just like you. Please visit us again. Thank you so much. Morphedo looks at their smiling faces and hesitates for a second. Duty my foot, that's just an excuse. Elzik leaves feeling satisfied. Now it's time to go see Dean Wright.